in the world. What up, fam? Welcome to Schooling the Globers, episode 2. I think it was a pretty big hit. A lot of people hit me up asking me to keep doing that. I think we'll try to do it like once a week. A lot of people hit me up asking me to fully in depth cover one of the videos we began to cover in the last one. So some of you guys may have already seen part of it, but we're going to completely break it down just because I know it'll be informative. And I've had a pretty astounding amount of people asking me to do that specifically. So that's what we're gonna do. Because we got to school the people that think the Earth's a globe. Because I would say the first step to having a justified belief is understanding and knowing what it is that you believe. It seems like when it comes to the globe and the specifics about it, that is not the case. Before we get started, though, I need everyone to smash the thumbs up. There's a little like button right over there. It looks like Joe Rogan from the neck up. And if you'll just go press that like button early in the stream, it will help us kind of glitch out the algorithms. And it does actually work. And maybe more people will come in here and join us to learn about how ridiculous the globe is. So until a lot of people go smash the thumbs up, um, well, we're actually going to hold off on that till two more people get in here. So you guys have cut it for now. But just know, we got something planned. So we're gonna jump right into the stream. I got a lot of different things that I can cover for you. At the end of the stream, I have gotten a couple things in the mail in the PO box, so we're gonna read off those letters. We also had a really cool um, baby shower, and I'm gonna thank all the people there. So just so you know, the PO box is right here. PO box 171433, Spartanburg, South Carolina 29301. And what we're gonna do is I will read off the letters. I think that's a pretty cool thing. I first saw that actually on Owen Benjamin's stream because he keeps getting censored, but the post office won't censor him. But I do think it's pretty cool. It's like this like real connection type of thing. Just like the Patreon stream where we kind of get more of a connected. I kind of consider you guys my familia. So I'll read off the letters that were sent, and I think that that's a pretty cool personable touch. Um so cool. And I see a lot of people are helping us get some of the stuff off the baby registry, so that's very awesome. You guys are the best. And there is a link in the chat or in the description, I think, for the baby registry. And we're trying to as we figure out what we don't have or what we need to get still, we put it on there. We did get quite a bit of stuff long before we had a registry or anything, so we're almost there. But thanks to everyone that's helping with that, and I think that once I receive those, I will open those up on camera and thank the people who sent it, so I do appreciate it. I do want to come over here real fast and take this picture. And then we're going to get into covering just typical mistakes that the ballers make. You know how it goes. And you know how it be. All right, save image. I'll show you guys the baby shower we had. It was cool. Here's a picture from the baby shower. A bunch of legends. And we had all kinds of children. You can see a few of the babies here. We had some more babies that are not in this picture there. So a bunch of flat earth families raising organic babies where they'll know where they live. They'll know how to think for themselves. It's a really beautiful thing. So shout out to all the legends who came out and supported. And thank you guys for all the support. And that was very cool. All right, cool. So let's get into it. We got 205 watching and 159 thumbs up. That is a pretty good ratio. I'm gonna come back and check on you guys with the thumbs up in a little bit. But let's go ahead and start the show without further ado. We're going to be covering these goobers here. And it's good to learn about it. I am kind of on the fence right now, so I'll show you guys this too as well while we're at it, actually. So I don't know if you there's a dude named Fight the Tight Shirt on, YouTube. His entire thing is to, like, literally just constantly personally bash flat earthers. That's, like, what he makes a living doing, is just talking bad about people constantly. That's, like, his thing. Um, and he's freaking out right now because they're running this narrative that I'm scared to debate Professor Dave. The only way I'll do it is I'm demanding money and all this nonsense. Um, so they have to be exposed. Now I'm gonna try to just kinda take the high road for now unless they just can't stop, but here's an example. So he posted this. So Witsitgetsit is a big coward, only willing to debate Professor Day if he is paid $10,000. Amazing he thinks he is worth 2 cents. I'm done being nice. When was that? I'm going to destroy Witsit and his relativity nonsense. He is the personification of top left. Witsit makes claims with no evidence. Witsit is going to be ruined. And of course, you got 500 people thumbing that up, and you got all kinds of comments from people just hating on me. You know how it goes. And I guess here he is making Austin is scared to debate Professor Dave without payment. He's having a full hissy fit. Blah 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 blah. To prove me wrong, the debate's on the 16th, right? Now, this is what's so funny. This is the very thing that I told Bryant was going to happen. And I was like, Bryant, you're with the most toxic people on the internet that have notoriously lied about people for years. And you're trying to, are you, I can't trust you guys. Now, I did give Brian a benefit of the doubt that he was much better than these other people. Um, so I knew what was going to happen was, so he, just so you know the story, to break it down one final time, Dave Weiss hit me up and said that Brian Myers, the professor I debated, you can check out our debate on my channel, former professor in physics, BS and MA in physics. He hit me up through Dave and contacted Dave and said, we really want, because FTFE had been asking me to debate Professor Dave on his channel. And I was like, no, I'm not bringing like the most in demand flat earth debate to your channel where you can get tons of views when you're super toxic out of principle. I'm not doing that. Um, and then he said, "Well, Professor Dave said he'll only debate you on my channel. He's not doing it anywhere else." So then I just went and DM'd Professor Dave myself. I'm like, "Wow, you're scared to debate me on a fair platform. You need like MC Tune as your moderator with FTFE as the host, so it can be like 3v1 on like the most toxic, unfair platform ever." He said, "See how you gotta lie and make up stuff and stuff like that." I'm like, "That's what FTFE told me, was that you would only debate me on his channel." He said, "I never said that. He's lying." So it's funny how that works. I have the DMs to prove all that, of course, because I don't lie. And long story short, I'm like, well, let's do modern day debate. He turned it down. So he was willing to debate on FTFE, like notorious for being the worst place ever, the most toxic place ever to debate, with all kinds of unfair muting, interrupting, 3v1, then they'll read super chats and insult you and dogpile you, blah, blah, blah. And obviously, I'm not going to debate Professor Dave, who gets propped up in the algorithms when you type in flat earth and gets millions of views, where they try to set me up to make me look bad and not give me a fair opportunity. And then if I end up leaving because they were muting me and not letting me speak, then they get to say I rage quit. It's just a recipe for disaster. I'm not doing that. And so I told him no. And as out of principle, I think that I shouldn't be supporting his channel with the biggest video he'll probably ever have when he's that toxic and hateful as a person. So anyway, I said no. And I told Professor Dave, okay, we'll figure it out. And I'm hoping that he would just like eventually, realize that he looks ridiculous and just be a man and go debate on a fair platform. And was going to wait for James to talk to him. So then they keep hitting me up saying I'm scared to debate him. I won't debate him. I'm scared to debate. I'm like, dude, I asked him to debate me 2 years ago. Like he wouldn't debate me like almost 3 years ago now. I have the DMs to also prove that, right? Like I'm obviously not scared to anyone that knows me knows I'm not scared to debate anyone about the earth. It's a ridiculous statement. They're just trying to like use reverse psychology. And luckily, I don't have that much of an ego where it's not going to work. I'm like, okay, we all know I'm not scared. So whatever, say what you want. Okay. I'm just trying to fully cover this so we can just move on from it. Okay. So then I just started ignoring them, even though they were trying to gaslight me and stuff, talking about how I'm scared. And then Dave Weiss called me, said that Bryant Myers had hit him up because look, you're going to see all these people, right? Just like lying about everything. Watch this. Strange, you didn't have a problem with 4 FE versus 1 globe being consistent is hard, isn't it? And what's funny is Bryant Myers begged for that to happen, set it up that way, and asked to come on there and do it. He asked for that to happen. He asked them to set it up where we all come onto to the platform, and then he's like the guest. He asked for that. Okay. The difference is we let him talk majority of the time. We let him give his whole presentations and all this stuff, right? He talked majority of the time. This is a formal debate between me and Dave Weiss. This wasn't supposed to be a debate with Brian Myers. It was supposed to be a conversation, and he asked to do it. He's the one that consistently asked them to do it. Now that I've just corrected the lie narrative he just said, this is where we school Globers, right? This He'll still say it anyway. He'll go to another comment section and say it again. He'll just keep saying it because you have to lie to be one of these people on the internet. To be an anti-flat earther, you have to lie. It's like a prerequisite. It's because they hate life. They honestly do. They hate life. You should kind of like almost show empathy towards them. They're like very toxic people that hate their lives. They're like miserable, and it's sad. It's actually sad, right? Um, all right, so you're getting blocked because you're not allowed to talk about my wife. I'm sorry, you just had to do it, didn't you? So let me hide him, since I guess no mods are gonna hide him talking about my wife. So okay, um, moving on. So they then Dave Wise contacts me because Professor Dave had hit him up, or Bryant Myers had hit him up saying, "Talk Austin into debating Professor Dave. I'll be the moderator. Please, please, please." Tell him this is where the whole idea of money came in the first place. Bryant came up with the idea of trying to pay me because I was turning them down, saying, "No, I'll debate him on a fair platform. You're not going to set me up." Right? That's obviously what they're doing because they know they can't debate me fairly. I'm going to intellectually eviscerate Professor Dave on the day that it happens and there's a fair debate. And everyone knows it. Everyone knows it. Fight the Flat Earth knows it. MC2 knows it. Professor Dave knows it. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows it. Either they're going to try to set me up or he probably won't do it because he's going to get destroyed. Like, let's just be honest. And now here you go, where he's made a fake name of me and he's talking about my wife again. This is the kind of people we're dealing with. He just came in with my username and is now talking about my wife again. These are the kind of people that represent the globe, right? It's like very toxic group of people, right? Like they literally hate their life and they're like obsessed with me and other flat earthers. It's very crazy. But anyway, so just imagine being that psychopathic. It's so funny. So he hits me up saying, Bryant is wanting to give you $5,000 to hold on to. And if there's any interruptions, you can keep it. And it's completely up to you. You can just keep the money. He wants to give you $5,000 to do the debate. Because we all know, obviously, I was going to be interrupted. Professor Dave can't not interrupt. That's like literally what he does, interrupt and insult you. That's the only way he can debate. So he's like, you can just keep the money, the $5,000. I'll send you $5,000. I said, no. So I'm talking on the phone with Dave Weiss. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. Out of principle, I'm not debating on fight. Now, could I use $5,000? Of course, but I'm not doing it. I was like, no, I'm not doing it out of principle. Me and Dave was like, I agree. We laughed about it. And then he was like, you know what I say? I say you say make it 10,000, and if Professor Dave interrupts one time, you keep all of it. And then we both laughed like as a joke, like he'll never agree to that, right? Because it's a guarantee that he will interrupt. So we made a response to him that we thought he would never take because out of principle, I don't want to debate on there. I want to debate on a fair platform for free, right? So anyway, so he did. I guess he extended that to him. And I guess maybe Bryant messaged me a few times. I ignored him. He was in my comment sections and in my chats. I was ignoring him because I didn't want to debate on there out of principle. I'm not going to give that dude like what he needs flat Earth to exist. Why am I going to give him like the biggest flat Earth debate ever? Right. And literally, I turned down money. That's why. So now you see what he's doing. He's saying, I won't debate unless I get paid. I'm such a shill. Wizard has to be paid to debate. I was turning down thousands of dollars for weeks at a time. That's what actually happened. So think about how much you have to lie about everything to be one of these people, bro. And I think it's important to cover stuff like this just because there are people that are on the fence or new or not connected to this and just realize the people that have adamantly like made a living out of and full time try to defend the globe against all the flat earth misinformation, they have to be the most degenerate, dishonest, hateful, toxic people in the world. That's who you're dealing with. When you really look into the specifics and you know it and you got to make up your mind, to stick with the globe and all the lies requires you to fall down into this spiral of dishonesty and toxicity, right? And so it needs to be exposed because when you YouTube Flat Earth, you get these people. That's the only reason they get any play because of censorship and suppression, right? Okay, anyway, so I turned down the money And then he kept hitting me up, and he was in my chat and stuff like that because I had made a joke like on Glowbusters when we were talking about it, and maybe even in one of my other streams where I'm like, "Nah, I don't, nah, that's not good enough. I'm not doing it." And I was saying then too, I'm like, "I'll debate for free. I'll debate for free on a fair, neutral platform. Why are you so scared?" I even made a video saying Professor Dave is scared a long time ago, saying, "Why are you afraid to debate me on a free, fair platform, bro? Like, why are you scared? Money had nothing to do with any of it, right?" It's crazy how anyone can look at the evidence for flat Earth and still think we live on a ball of wax. Uh, yeah, it's just because they're actually just afraid of the implications, and they're if they're obsessed with the conversation and they think that, they're kinda toxic people. But thank you for the, super chat, Chad, much love. And then thank you for the, super chat, Bane Bear, much love, brother. So, anyway, moving forward, I'm like, "Nah, nah, give me 10 grand, no questions asked, I get 10 grand, and then I'll consider it." You know, I was just because it's just like a joke. I mean, it's like, I didn't want to go there. So then he starts hitting me up and say, "I saw on your stream where you said 10 grand and, okay, I agree. I'll give you $10,000 in assurances. Here's the deal. I'll give you 5,000 up front, and then we'll set 5,000 to third party. And if it's unfair and it'll be up to you, then you get to keep the other 5 grand, blah, blah, blah." And I was like ignoring his messages. I was ignoring them for a while. Then he would be in my chat saying it. So this is now we're up to 10 grand, me turning down 10 grand. And he's in my chats, he's in my comments, he's talking to Professor Dave, he's talking to Jaron, and he's in my email, right? And then, of course, you got FTFE in the background running his mouth about how I'm scared to debate Professor Dave. And I'm turning it down. I'm turning down the money that I could definitely use. I have a baby on the way, right? Okay, this everything I'm saying is exactly what happened. I don't have to lie. I have the receipts for all of it. Like, I'm actually doing Brian a favor by not showing the emails, just publicly showing them because it makes him look so bad because he swore up and down so many times that he wouldn't go back on his word. So anyway, then we're gonna move on. 3:35. We need everyone to smash the like button, please. Hey, will you smash the like button while we have so many people here already? Or we might have to watch the Artemis live stream. Hey, if you'll smash the thumbs up, then we can continue the stream, please. We just take a small second, go smash the thumbs up for me if you don't mind, or we could always watch the very exhilarating Artemis live stream. This is literally live right now. This is actually what it's showing live right now for hours. This is what we get. What a joke. Toot, 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 toot. All right, we're good. All right, so thanks for those that smashed the like button. So anyway, eventually I'm talking to him and I'm like, I guess I'll entertain it, but here's the deal, right? Like you have to agree to a contract that I get to type up, right? We have to agree to specific stipulations that it'll be fair, or it's like, or I get the money, or I get like, and he was going to send me money up front and then send and give a third party the money in between, right? And then we're still going back and forth, and I'm like saying I'm not even sure I want to do it, and I was like blah blah blah. So he's like constantly asking me to do it, and then I end up saying um, well, he's like, "But you have to publicly announce it." I'm like, "I know, because I don't trust you guys." So it's like, if we come to some type of agreement and then I go publicly announce that I've committed to a debate with Professor Dave, and then he's agreed on the date. So I announce the date and everything, and then you just pull out and don't send me the money like you promised that you would, right? I'm not going to go on there because you're not keeping your word. And my whole entire thing is I don't want to promote FTFE, right? So this would because it won't be fair, guaranteed, right? In the moment, they can't control themselves. That's too many, like millions of people could see it. They can't. There's like they love clouds, they love attention, they're gamma melts. So it's like I'm not stupid. So nah, like the money might would can like ensure it be fair, right? Because if you break the contract, then you have to pay me. So I'm like, okay, this will make it fair. And the contract I ended up writing it was just like I can show it to you guys. Just like like no interruptions. Brian agrees to mod fairly and without bias for both sides. That there can be no one else's a 1v1 debate, and that no one else can be jumping in the debate, and that no other parties can then read the question and answers and then give additional commentary and tag up on me. Just basic stuff that it has to be fair for both sides. And they freaked out. That's why they ended up pulling it. Also, the emails are our contract. If he breaks the contract, it damages you. You can go after him legally now for more than 10,000. I know. I actually tried to tell him. I was like, technically speaking, I could like make you pay me, but I just like to try to take the high road, man. To be honest, but they keep on like lying on my name. They're gonna force me to show all the emails, and it's gonna look so bad for them. So anyway, sometimes you gotta try to kind of take the high road. I just know that now that lies are being spread, like I have to address it to try to clear the air. So and then we go back and forth. I'm like, nah, because if I say it's publicly, then you pull back on me. Then you guys are gonna run the narrative that I'm scared to debate Professor Dave. You're going to say, Austin ran away. Professor Dave agreed to a debate. Austin ran away. He's scared, blah, blah, blah. And so then he starts saying, like, dude, I promise you have my word. I would never like renege on an agreement like that. No matter what happens, even if Professor Dave backs out, I'm going to send you the money. You have my word, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, I just need to hear back from Professor Dave and have him commit. So then Professor Dave agrees to a date. We go back and forth. I guess he's having a baby early January. I'm having a baby late December, early January. So we were working out a date. We agreed on like December 16th. So then we agree on the date. So then I go, no, now me and Brian are going back and forth. So now we're at the point of agreement that I've publicly stated it. I went on Discord and said it. I said it on Glowbusters. I even said it on my channel. And so then we go back and he's like, oh no, I changed my mind. I'm not going to do it. I'm backing out. Right? He did the exact thing he swore in over 5 to 7 emails over and over and over. He gave me his word. He swore up and down. He's like, I'm a man of my word. I'm not like that. I would never do it. And I trusted him. So sure, it's my fault. I should have known not to trust them. I should have known not to trust these kind of people. But I thought Bryant was different. I thought Bryant was being tricked by them, right? Like I thought he was like being duped and like kind of getting caught up in with him. I thought he was different than that. And so that's pretty much it. I mean, the negative that came from it was that since he was so insistent and gave me his word in his first email, which I have a screenshot of it. If they keep playing with me, I'll just show all the emails. He's like, dude, luckily for me, money is no issue. It's no problem at all. So I'm happy to do this. And he ends up saying that he would benefit greatly from it because no one knows who he is. But then there would be like millions of people maybe that could see him if they posted on his channel. So he would benefit greatly from being the moderator as well, right? Like the Glober moderator, professor, whatever. So he basically was willing to pay so he could throw his channel, prop his channel up, and he really wanted the debate to happen, blah, blah, blah. So he was so insistent about keeping his word. And like I was like, dude, I have like 10 emails of him swearing up and down in different ways he would never back out. Even if Professor Dave backs out, he keeps his word once I publicly say it and we agree on a date, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, we're good, we're pretty covered. So then I took some of the money I had set aside, right? Because we have the baby being born soon, and we're having natural birthing clinic, and that costs like thousands of dollars, and we have all this other expenses. So it's like I had some money that I was like slowly trying to set up aside outside of the bills, save up, and then once he agreed to the amount he was going to send me and the third party amount, I'm like, okay, now I can take this money and I can pay off some of these debts. Just go ahead and like pay off all the debts that I can, right? So that we don't have to worry about that before Leah gets here. And then when he sends me the money, it'll just replace that money that I had set aside before she gets here. So that way we'll get the debt out of the way, and then we'll have some money still set aside for her, right? And for the birth and all this. So I go pay that off, and then he hits me up talking about he's pulling out. Well, obviously I can't like go back and get all this. So who is this? Okay, I don't know why you're so upset in the chat, but it sounds like you're a gamma. But anyway, so that's what does suck about it, right? Is that like it put me in a really like not good situation. But long story short, that was like 15 minutes of me having to address it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't care, right? Like they're gonna keep posting these posts talking about I'll only debate Professor Dave for 10,000. I said I'll debate him for free anywhere that's a free, fair platform, 100% for free. Been saying it the whole time. I'm not debating him on your channel, and you're not going to scare me into doing it. So that's pretty much what happened. And like, yeah, it's unfortunate because it really screwed me over with like 3 weeks out from my like first baby girl being here, but it's whatever. I know that the father will provide, and I'm not going to like yeah, I'm not gonna get too caught up in it. I'm not gonna like get real dirty. I'm not gonna like sue him, although I have all the proof of what he swore, and technically he did enter a contract with me. I'm just like, it's what happened was FTFE and MC2 were like, no, they were so angry at the idea that I would get paid to do it. They were like, they hate me so much. They're like, no, we have to ruin his life, and that's the kind of people that they are. So that's what happened. So we can move on now that we've covered that to an insane degree. No need, Professor Dave. Just hint Hovind. Hint Hovind can debunk you on Flat Earth. Kent Hovind will come to your channel. Okay, thanks for the $5 super chat. And Kent Hovind 100% can't debunk me on Flat Earth, and so ask him to come to my channel, see what happens. And the reason that I'm going to expose Professor Dave is because everything he says is very low IQ and stupid, but he's propped up to millions of people, right? And so I would love to. Oh, you can't see the curvature from the Earth? Come on over here and tell us about how the 8 inches per mile square is so stupid and so wrong. Come over here and teach us all about it, right? It needs to be exposed. I can only throw twos because my account is low. Much love. No problem. It's all good, brother. Thank you for the super chat, Bane Bear, for your new baby. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chipak Dopra. Sorry, I don't know how to say your name, but thank you for the $20 super chat. Much love. Okay. Anyway, we covered all that. That's all the drama. We can get over it, whatever. But of course, they're just going to keep lying. And of course, you'll see this as we covered this show tonight. You would already have known before I told you all that. That's the kind of people they are. I guess I just gave the Brian to. I should have known, honestly, because look at what he does here. So anyway, there's just that. I don't want to keep talking about it. Maybe he'll agree to debate me on Modern Day Debate or some other neutral platform. Ideally, be Modern Day Debate. Maybe an in-person debate that they're having like an in-person event. I know he's just about to have a baby too. So either way, at one point in time, if it's the creator's will, if it's meant to be, I will be debating Professor Dave. But that's what happened with all that. I obviously will not be getting bullied and lied about and gaslit into running over to a 4v1 setup debate with Brian, MC Toon, FTFE, and Professor Dave, 4v1 on his channel, where they read their super chats, which will be all like the people that were in here hating on me, all the most toxic, lying, anonymous, psychopathic people hating on me. They're reading all these insults. I have to sit there. I'm not doing it, right? Because I want to represent Flat Earth and help make a change, not entertain these losers. All right, moving on. So what we're going to do is we're going to school the Globers. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and watch this video. This is where MC Toon and Brian Myers watch the debate between me and FTFE. Now, we covered a little bit of it on the other one, but we're going to fully cover it. It's probably going to be a decently long show, but it is what it is. We started pretty early, and hopefully a bunch of people learn stuff. We'll pull up all the resources and stuff, and we'll fully cover and bury some of this nonsense. So maybe you guys at home can learn this. If you're new to the subject, you can realize why it's important. And if you're new to even this subject within the subject of Flat Earth, you can also put this in your arsenal because it's a lethal blow to the religion of heliocentrism. So let's get into it.
That's all. I don't want to maybe
debated earlier tonight. I did not watch it. I was busy, but you know who did watch it? Who did watch it is Bryant Myers. Welcome, Bryant.
Hello. Yes, it was a good debate. I thought
no
FTFE
spoilers. No spoilers.
Oh, so is the Modern Day Debate not happening? Sorry, I came in late. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Me and Jaron are debating this Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern on Modern Day Debate about the Earth. When it comes to Professor Dave, we're still in the air on that, waiting for it to happen.
Oh, okay.
He was about to say that
I have
Professor
it all
Dave did
queued
good.
up, ready to go, and I thought we would just review some of it.
I'm gonna speed it up, but what sucks is they end up speeding me up, so it's like gonna be way too fast, right? So,
but yeah, give your quick without ruining anything for me.
Are we gonna watch? We're gonna watch the whole debate, are we?
No, there's no way to watch the whole thing and have.
Yeah, I was gonna say okay. Yeah, well, like I said, I thought he did well, and I was kind of for Witsit. There was no surprise. I mean, maybe a couple of little surprises, but I've heard him say all these things before. But it wasn't until tonight that I finally got what he was trying to do with the whole Michelson length contraction thing.
Think about this. I'm so stupid that it wasn't until tonight that I understood what Austin was trying to say. Oh, so you're the one that's still behind, even under your own admittance. That's awkward.
And I know he doesn't know what he's talking about because he's probably just parroting it from someone else. But
no one in Flat Earth has ever made the arguments that I'm making right now. Like, no one has made it a whole in-depth argument the way that I came up with all that myself. I'm not parroting it from anyone. Stop projecting your ineptitude.
But whoever told it to him, I finally kind of get it. So we can go over that. I don't want to maybe give that away if we're going to show some of those highlights. But
If you've been watching the people around Witsit for a while, you can pinpoint who he parroted something from. And the interesting thing is he will parrot it and he will never correct the parroting because he didn't read it, he didn't investigate it himself, he doesn't have an understanding of it. He just, the only thing he knows is what he was told. And so
I literally read all of this. You still haven't read it. You don't comprehend it. I've sent you all the resources. I've emailed back and forth correcting you. You guys always run away from the point once corrected. I pulled them up on my stream. We're going to pull them up tonight. I have researched it. I have read all of it. I'm not parroting anyone. I've never heard another flat earther even make the arguments that I'm currently making. I'm disappointed you're not debating that clown. I always enjoyed watching you. Good luck with the baby. Thank you for the $5 super chat. I can't debate him on there out of principle. I'm not going to do it. If he wants to debate me on a fair place, is it really too much to ask for me to say, let's just go somewhere that's neutral and fair, where the moderator has no bias, has no motivation for some certain party to win? It's just a fair, neutral platform. Is that fair? Is that really unfounded for me? Oh, I'm such a con man because I want it to be fair. I'm not saying let's go debate on Jaren's channel. Let's go debate on a flat earth. I'm saying no, just a fair, neutral. That's how debates work. Debates don't work 4v1, muting, interrupting, screaming, cussing, ad homing, using all kinds of fallacies, and constantly strawmanning your opponent where they don't get to talk, where the host, moderator, and an audience member and the debater is all against you. So, I mean, if it's supposed to be, it's supposed to be, but I'll not be folding on my principles. And even whenever I agreed to the money, I didn't fold on my principles either because I made them agree to a contract that would make it fair. And that's the whole point. So anyway, moving on.
He will repeat that same thing forever as if it's absolute truth, even in absolute lack of any understanding at all. So
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to, because it's kind of funny. He didn't even know the formula.
So I have no understanding at all, but I'll keep saying it. Okay, just remember how ironic that gets.
This is
for Lorentz
for me, this is like,
contraction.
no, FTFE had to, told him the formula, and Witsit is like, well, you got to look at the screen to tell. So FTFE looked up and did he said it correctly, right? But then Witsit tries to correct him and say, no, it's.
First of all, when he looked up at the screen, he ended up looking back down to read it off. And secondly, I don't care. I just thought it was funny. He was trying to get a gotcha with the equation, which is irrelevant if he actually understands it, which we'll get into in a second. And thirdly, when I corrected it, all I did was say, no, I think that's wrong. That's right. It's like the one thing I messed up on in the debate because he did get the equation, the formula right. But I was talking about before you take the factor out of it, before you factor it, I was talking about a different version that is still the Lorentz contraction application. So it's like, oh man, oh, you guys crushed me. Oh man, I misremembered a formula off the top of my head after he had just studied it and worked it all out and had it written down in front of him. Weird.
C squared times C squared, and I was like,
geez.
It's no.
Watch, MC Toon says, oh geez, like he remembers it later in the debate. He can't even start to say the first part of it. He has no idea what it is. I just wanted you to soak in, like these people are constantly so dishonest about everything. Oh geez, he literally proves later he doesn't even know the formula. So oh geez,
he had it right. It was V squared over C squared.
Yeah, it's a square root. So was it one minus?
Well, I'm saying that particular.
He still doesn't know.
He went through the whole equation, and it's it's basically it's L naught times the square root of 1 minus V squared over C squared. And so Witsit tries to thinking that he's got FTFE, tries to correct him, and he corrects him with the wrong. It's called the Lorentz factor, right? It's a factor that they use in length contraction. Time
right,
dilation.
it's the factor, right? So before that, what is it? Oh, V squared times C squared, just like I said. Wow, this is awkward because think about it. He's so happy I got this part wrong. Now watch what happens because he's wrong about everything. They're wrong about everything. This is a professor, bro. This is a former professor in physics. He has a BS and MA in physics. He has been stalking my channel and spamming me with emails obsessively, as this engineer has done the same thing with all flat earthers, but particularly me for years now. Flat earth is so stupid that these grown adults, grown men who say flat earth is stupid, have obsessively kept up with every one of my arguments to the point that they're spiraling on their community posts on YouTube saying, I'm going to tear down this nonsense. Why are you so emotionally invested in what some flat earther on the internet has to say about flat earth or what his most recent argument is? It's very transparent. We can all see through you. The truth is that you are obsessed with it because you feel the need to try to shut it down and lie and fight it because you're scared of what's going to happen, which is that we are obviously going to end up winning and everyone's going to end up hearing the real flat earth without being censored. Moving on.
And mass increase. It's the same factor.
And hilariously, for Witsit, who calls everybody gamma. The Greek letter for the Lorentz contraction is gamma.
Is gamma. And it was just so here he is using
That's
an
hilarious. You're a
equation that
gamma.
he can't even recite. It's not that's and he's thinking that he has FTFE, like somehow FTFE is not getting, but he's speaking from Lorentz's failed model of ether. I finally got it tonight. We can elaborate on that maybe in a little bit. But
All right. Well, before we
Okay, so he's speaking from Lorenz's failed theory of the ether. I finally got it tonight. No, you're completely wrong. It's the same in relativity. Let's actually, from the very beginning, let's just go ahead and pull it up just so you guys understand how wrong this guy is. It's hilarious. Okay, the Lorentz contraction, again, really quick, brief summary. You have Michelson-Morley. It's called the most famous failed experiment in history. It changed all of physics, and it has introduced relativity. It added a whole new dimension. It changed everything. The theory of relativity is the current version of gravity that everyone uses. It holds the whole model together. Without it, you can't have a globe Earth model spinning around the sun. It's literally vital. It changed all of physics. It's the most famous failed experiment ever in history. Okay? Now let's see what Einstein says, because we have to go straight to the source here, because now that when I bring up the quotes, they say, oh, Einstein's just taking it out of context. All he has is quotes. He just takes quotes out of context. And that's all they can say, right? Because they can't actually debate it. So let me find the, well, we'll play a little bit more while I find it so I don't make you guys sit. In a world.
all right. I have it queued up to where FTFE talked about he did his what he said it quite a few times, the gentleman physicist and the Foucault pendulum. And then he showed a picture of Artemis from the Earth, actually from
of the Earth. I'm Artemis. I'm a grown man and I'm obsessed with cartoons from the government. All right, here we go. Window, bang, bang. All right, check it out. This is it's called Relativity, Special and General Theory, written by Einstein. Okay, and he just said, "Oh, I finally got it. I finally understood it. He's confusing Lorentz ether theory, and he's trying to promote that as that's what he believes in, and he's trying to confuse it with relativity. He's getting confused. He just doesn't understand it." Okay, first of all, I'm not promoting Lorentz theory. I don't think the Earth is a ball that revolves around the sun. I'm not a psychopath. I don't need the apparatus in Michelson-Morley to contract. Write it down, Brian, because it's the last time I'm correcting you. You're very exhausting and boring and lame, okay? I don't need Lorentz theory. I don't believe in Lorentz theory. Lorentz just made up a theory to try to save the globe Earth model because the evidence showed the Earth wasn't moving. I'm correcting you and the ballers who don't, because we're schooling the globers. That's what this series is called, schooling the globers. I'm trying to school you so you can correct your positions. Stop looking so stupid on the internet. Okay. The point is that is the same answer relativity gave was, oh, if you shoot light against, they shot an L and got an L. Okay. Light's going perpendicular. One's going this way. That's with the motion of the Earth. This light going this way is against the motion of the Earth. Okay. So this one going against the motion of the Earth should be a little bit behind the one going with it because it has to catch up to the Earth moving away from it. So there should be a little fringe shift in the light because the Earth is orbiting the sun, but there wasn't one. So it puzzled all of physicists. Let's just read Einstein, see what he says about it. Oh, how dare you actually know what you're talking about. Okay. How dare you? Here you go. The second class of facts, which we have alluded, has reference to the question whether or not the motion of the Earth in space can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments, meaning all experiments in and on the Earth, of the Earth, terrestrial experiments. Did they just shoot up on me? Okay. We have already remarked in section 5 that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result. Before the theory of relativity was put forward, it was difficult to become reconciled to this negative result for reasons now to be discussed. Okay, so relativity helped reconcile what? Negative result. What negative result? The negative result of attempts to detect the motion of the Earth. Okay, relativity helped to reconcile all the negative results attempting to detect the motion of the Earth with terrestrial experiment. The inherited prejudices about time and space did not allow any doubt to arise as the prime importance of the Galilean transformation for changing over from one body of reference to another, meaning our current understanding at the time of space and time did not allow them to explain the negative results. They had to change their understanding of space and time. That's what relativity did. Now, assuming that the Maxwell-Lorentz equations hold for a reference body x or k, then we find that they do not hold for a reference body k moving uniformly with respect to k. If we assume that the relations of a Galilean transformation exist between the coordinates of k and k, whatever, it thus appears that all Galilean coordinate systems, 1k, corresponding to a particular state of motion is physically unique. Anyway, so he goes on. This result was interpreted physically by regarding k as at rest with respect to a hypothetical ether of space. On the other hand, all coordinate systems k moving relatively to k were to be regarded as in motion with respect to the ether. To this motion of k against the ether drift relative to k, were assigned the more complicated laws which were supposed to hold relative to k. Strictly speaking, this is where everyone should listen, right? Strictly speaking, such an ether drift ought also to be assumed relative to the Earth, and for a long time, the efforts of physicists were devoted in attempts to detect the existence of an ether drift at the Earth's surface. In one of the most notable of these attempts, what attempts? Oh, to detect the ether drift. And then they say he's just talking about Michelson-Morley in that quote, which is right here, right? To the question whether or not the motion of the Earth can be made in space in terrestrial experiments. Then he goes on to explain one of the types of tests that they do, right? Long time physicists were devoted in attempts to detect the existence of an ether drift. This is a specific type of test. He said all terrestrial experiments don't detect it. He goes on to say something about the ether drift. Physicists wanted to detect the ether drift. That's a separate type of experiment with anyone with basic reading comprehension. It then says, in one of the most notable of these attempts, what attempts? The ether tests. Michelson devised a method which appears as though it must be decisive. Must be decisive. Imagine two mirrors so arranged on a rigid body that the reflecting surfaces face each other. A ray of light requires a perfectly definite time t to pass from one mirror to the other and back again, and the whole system be at rest with respect to the ether. It is found by calculation, however, that a slightly different time is required for this process if the body together with the mirrors be moving relatively to the ether. And yet another point is shown by calculation that for a given velocity with reference to the ether, this time is different when the body is moving perpendicularly to the planes of the mirrors from that resulting when the motion is parallel to these planes. Although the estimated time difference between these two times is exceedingly small, okay? Michelson and Morley performed an experiment involving interference in which the difference should have been clearly detectable. The experiment gave a negative results, a fact very perplexing to physicists. Lorentz and Fitzgerald rescued the theory from this difficulty by assuming Lorentz and Fitzgerald rescued the theory from this difficulty by assuming that the motion of the body relative to the ether produces a contraction of the body in one direction of motion, the amount of contraction being just sufficient to compensate for the difference in the time mentioned above. The time mentioned above, which is exceedingly small, okay? Lorentz and Fitzgerald came up with a contraction proposal of the body in the direction of motion and the amount of contraction being just sufficient to compensate for the difference in time mentioned above, which is exceedingly small. Comparison with the discussion in section 12 shows that from the standpoint also of the theory of relativity, okay? Do you see this? Theory. It says, from the standpoint also of the theory of relativity, this solution of the difficulty was the right one. Okay? Then it goes, but on the basis of the theory of relativity, the method of interpretation is incomparably more satisfactory. So it's a difference in interpretation of the solution to the difficulty. What's the difficulty? It is that they did not detect it. The exceedingly small difference was not detected. Lorentz and Fitzgerald saved this difficulty. Okay, this solution that Fitzgerald came up with was the right solution to the difficulty according to relativity. Very simple. Okay, now that we've covered that basic part there, I hope that makes sense to everyone. I tried to make sure that I didn't go too fast or anything. It's very simple. So we're going to move on to where they have no idea they're talking about the whole time, right? Because we don't have all day. Let's do it.
taken from Artemis. So, all right, that's where I am. That's where we will join the debate already in progress.
So I guess he's claiming, in summary, that since a pendulum precesses, then that proves that the Earth spins, and that since it
We're not going to listen. I can't listen to too fast, which sucks. We're already 50 minutes in. So the beginning is where he brings up the pendulum. I respond to the pendulum, and then I give my thing. So they don't say anything. Now we covered this debate already. You can watch Schooling Globers, the first episode. We cover this debate, so you can go watch that. Now we're going to cover what this professor in physics, who's obsessed with me, and what this engineer, I think he's an engineer, who's obsessed with flat Earth, what they have to say. Okay, so
yeah,
we're Schooling Globers, right? We are at the normal speed, right?
started, of course,
As the rotation of the Earth.
Yeah.
But
the results they wanted, and oftentimes in the South, the results constantly fluctuate. But again, it doesn't even matter because according to Einstein himself and relativity, which is the glue for your model, as stupid as it is, which we'll get into, there will be a translation of motion, so it can go either way. So you would literally have a motion translated to the Earth. Now, of course, Einstein.
okay. Before we get into that, before
Watch all the fake laughing he does. He's such a grandma, bro.
we let him go farther, all these things that he said aren't actually the case.
All the things I said.
No.
So he's on the one hand he's accepting relativity.
No, not accepting relativity, Globers. This is School for Globers. Okay, you can go to $witsitgetsit on Cash App, or you can go to paypal.me/inaworld to pay your tuition. There will be a quiz next week in episode 3. Okay, we are schooling the Globers. We do not believe in relativity. It's called a hostile witness. We are using Einstein, that who proposed relativity, to correct you on your own position prior to us being able to debate the globe earthers about whether or not the Earth is in fact a globe that spins and revolves using relativity. We have to make sure they actually understand it. What we discovered in 2022 is that they do not understand it. So prior to having a fruitful conversation, it is a requirement that we actually cover the basis of the foundation of relativity on a very rudimentary level so we can understand how to progress the conversation. This is what we're doing. We're teaching you guys that you're misrepresenting your own model. Therefore, you're not even arguing for what it is you think you're arguing for. We don't believe in relativity. We're using Einstein as a hostile witness. You must believe in relativity to claim the current model that's called scientific is actual. Okay, so that's why we're bringing up relativity. It's a hostile witness using Einstein who proposed relativity, because if you believe relativity is true, then you must concede everything that theory says is true, which is all that's being brought up here, but he doesn't understand.
And claiming that relativity would cause the precession of a physical object equal to the directly proportional and in the same magnitude as the rotation of the Earth.
Yeah.
But I think he's talking about frame dragging in relativity.
Yeah, the frame dragging, and he, of course, as always, he forgets to leave out the immeasurably, with a practically unmeasurably small angular velocity, right? So he's kind of taken this quote that Einstein wrote to Ernst Mach, and he's just taking out the one part, but then he'll substitute his ether for the massive shell. So somehow
He just doesn't understand. But there's a letter from Einstein to Ernst Mach, right? And we'll cover this more in depth in episode 3. The first 3. So right now we're covering their misconceptions and their scripts and their talking points, so you'll know how to rebut it. In episode 3, we will be really breaking down exactly what goes on with relativity. I'll be showing you all the writings, all the quotes. I'll be giving you visualizations of Michelson-Morley. It will be like a class. Okay. How dare you? Austin's so arrogant, he thinks he can teach relativity. And I will admit that even I do not fully understand relativity. But hilariously enough, even Einstein himself said that by the time the mathematicians got a hold of it, even he did not fully understand it. It is not an inability to comprehend on my behalf. It is not why I don't understand it. Okay. It's because it is paradoxical, contradictory doublespeak that cannot be true. It says that at the speed of light, that matter contracts in the direction of motion, so much so that once you reach the speed of light, so relativistic speed is close to the speed of light. It contracts and contracts and contracts more the closer it gets to the speed of light in the direction of motion. And once it reaches the speed of light, it would cease to exist. It would no longer be there. It would shorten and contract so much that it went away. Simultaneously, it claims that it can be everywhere at the same time. That's a paradox. It's doublespeak. They then say, okay, matter contracts, but you can never physically measure it and prove it. So, but we know it shortens, trust us, but you can never test it. That's nonsense. Okay. You can't say that. That makes no sense. That isn't evidence of anything. That's an ad hoc nonsense theory to try to save your model. Okay. That's called pseudoscience. Okay. So it's not that I don't understand how people can do mental gymnastics to pretend that it's legitimate, but I definitely understand what he put forward as his base postulates and what he claims is going on. And you guys don't. That's the problem. Moving on.
Not only does he not understand that it's immeasurably small.
Oh, I didn't cover it. Oh, and let him go a little further.
Which is like, it's called the Lens-Thirring equation in general relativity. And when you do the equation, which, Einstein knew this, right? That's why he put immeasurably small, because it's 9 orders of magnitude smaller than the Earth's rotation.
He thinks this is a slam dunk, right? So I got the letter. Just to preemptively, what he's about to say is he's gonna like misrepresent what happened. But so I found the letter. They're talking about how I regurgitate stuff, dude. I found the letter. Kai was there. It took me all day to like really find the letter, track it down, then get the original copy, try to get the clearest copy. I went to Google Translate. I tried all kinds of different apps and different softwares to try to fully translate it. It's so sloppy that you can't fully translate it. But then I reached out to many German-speaking people, many of which who live in Germany, flat earthers and globe earthers, got them to translate it for me. No one could translate what was in parentheses. So I couldn't tell what it was. Google Translate and all the people that spoke German, including ball earthers, couldn't tell what it said. Okay. So I put what I got translated, which they all agreed on it. I put it in there. Okay. Now, apparently he maybe has some access to different types of things that I don't. I don't know. Scholarly articles. He found it. I couldn't find it. He found it. So he found it. And what it says in parentheses is like, although it would be immeasurably small. What he says is if the Earth is stationary and the sky is moving around it, it would translate motion down, called the Machian principle. He's talking to Mach, and it would drag a pendulum around even though the Earth's not moving. And they call that frame dragging. Okay. He's like, but it'd be immeasurably small. Austin intentionally left that out and tried to say it wasn't true and all that stuff. And when he emailed me, which I could show them, but I don't want to get too petty. Who cares? I think I'm giving them too much attention anyways. This is for educational purposes. I was like, oh, I didn't know I said that. I explained what I just explained to you guys, that they couldn't translate it. You actually look at the original letter, you can't get it in Google Translate, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that doesn't change my point anyway. So what it says is that if there were these stars super far away, the motion translated through a vacuum down to the Earth to move the pendulum would be exceedingly small. And that's correct. If you assume all these things like the lack of a medium, the distances, all the stuff, right? The masses, blah, blah, blah. Now, if it's a more dense medium and the stuff in the sky and the motion in the sky is more localized, and there's even maybe a background medium, you would have a significantly stronger translation of force, centrifugal and Coriolis in nature, and motion that translates through the medium. I'm just bringing up the principle and saying for you to believe in relativity, you have to believe the principle is valid, right? So even your own paradigm has to acknowledge the validity in the principle. I'm saying, look at this principle. If something moves around something stationary, if there's a medium, it'll translate motion. We know this a million ways. You can translate motion to a bathtub, moving your hand over it and move the water without touching it, right? Well, the energy transfers through the air and then goes to the water. So motion and forces can transfer through mediums. It's very simple. If everything's moving around the Earth that's stationary, you're going to have a translation of that motion. It's going to be all interconnected and it's going to translate down to the Earth. And even I only bring up Einstein in his letter to corner them, because instead of going back and forth, if they say it's not real, it's not true, blah, 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 I just say even Einstein said you have to agree the principle is true. I'm not saying I believe in relativity. I'm not saying I claim I believe in a vacuum. I don't believe in stars trillions of miles away. I don't care about being exceedingly small in your paradigm. I don't care about any of that. It is the principle. I'm using the principle. It has been 2 months and they still don't understand it, because he still doesn't understand to this day, according to his emails that he's sending me right now. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So let's move on.
And recently, the gravity probe B even found it at order of magnitude less than that. So this can't do what Witsit's saying that it can do. And because he cherry picked the Einstein quote, not understanding that Einstein knew what he was saying, but Witsit's kind of.
I didn't cherry pick anything. In context, it still says what I said, which is that he said the principle is true. I do understand it. It can do what I said it does. I don't believe in the fairy tale paradigm and variables that you believe in that would exclude it from being able to explain the motion. Please try to keep up. Slow down the video if you need to, Bryant.
Kind of using this, and I debated with him and through email back and forth, and he just well, he would admit that he got the quote wrong. It took me 5 emails for him to even finally, literally
Well,
me cutting.
This is not true. What I said was, wait, I don't know if that's true or not. I asked a ton of people to translate it. I'm not just going to believe you that it said that. Like, I need to see it because I asked tons of people and they said they couldn't read it. That's what I said. It wasn't 5 emails. It was me saying that one time. I'm not just going to randomly say, oh, you were right because you said so. I went through all kinds of effort to try to get it translated from both flat earthers and globe earthers and Google Translate and other softwares. I couldn't get it. So if you can send it to me. And he sent me Princeton and another place showing it the translation. I'm like, well, they're probably accurate, right? I mean, they're not going to make up what it says. So I was like, okay, fair enough. Here's why it still doesn't refute me, because the principle is all that's being invoked and the validity in that principle, you're forced to concede it based on blah, 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 what I just told you guys. And this is his recollection of the story, is that he sent me 5 emails and I just lied and didn't want to accept that it said something different. That's not what happened. I just said, I need to see it. I'm not just going to believe that you said it, because I went through a lot of effort and had a lot of people try to translate it. I actually didn't even remember that they had said they couldn't. It was actually the parentheses and then like the signature, the greeting, or not the greeting, whatever it's called, the opposite of the greeting that you say before it when he signs his name. There's a couple places that was so sloppy they couldn't read it. Moving on.
Yeah,
and you
go
know
ahead.
why? Because he parroted it from somebody else. He
Yeah.
didn't look it up himself. So he's not speaking from
Think
an understanding.
about how literally I've never heard anyone else say that. I didn't hear it from anyone. Like Kai watched me. I looked it up myself. I found it. I brought it to Flat Earth as the argument. I'm the one that brought it forth. The whole like, oh, the Machian principle sky. Look, even Einstein said in the letter to Ernst Mach in 1913. I found that doing diligent research. I found that. It took me hours. I read all through it. I got it translated on myself. Think about what he's saying. It's just lying. Why you gotta lie so much?
He's speaking from a parrot.
I literally like had to take the Cornell or I think it's Cornell or the website and just cut and paste and make it so obvious. And I had my gravitation
He had to actually verify his claims that there was an actual translation that said that and make it so. Wow, Brian.
textbook. I mean, just pictures right from the book showing both sources had the quote the way it is. And you know what he finally said? He said, well, I had 5 people translate it for me and they all gave me that. So I kid you not. I mean, I have this. I mean, I'm not making this up. I got proof in email that he said that they said that.
He had people translate it.
Well, because he didn't think that, because I told him I tried to use Google Translate and I got enough. And he was calling me out on it.
Oh, because it was in
He
German.
said I got enough. You can't get enough on Google Translate. I know for a fact that's not how he got it. He just found Princeton translating it. So yeah, I called you out because I actually did it. This is one of the reasons I was challenging, because I'm like, you're like lying. You're saying you can use Google Translate. I'm like, I tried to use Google Translate. You're lying. It doesn't work. Google Translate doesn't work on that image. So why are you lying? Because he was lying. And then he ends up saying, oh, well, here, it's in this book. I'm like, okay, well, thank you for verifying it. That's fine. Okay. Now I will update the quote now that I know what it says.
Because it's in German. He's like, you can't do that. We tried to do it. It's like, well, the image I have from my textbook is higher image. And you're right. I just got little phrases, but it was enough to figure out that these 2 sources, and what you can see is the actual parentheses. And there's a few words that you can actually aren't too different from English. And so it's not hard to find where that with a practically unmeasurably small angular velocity. And that changes the whole quote. And he's using.
Not really. I mean, it is definitely an important detail. Sure. Like I wouldn't have left it out if I knew it was there, but it doesn't change my argument at all.
This all the time. You know, I'm hearing it. Oh, let me turn my timer off. It's going to keep bothering us here. Hold on just a second.
All right. Well, anyway, so yeah, again, Witsit brought in something that he didn't understand. And he's talking about, he tries to hand wave away the pendulum. He tries to hand wave away the pendulum.
Guys, see how long it is to call out their lies, how long it takes? It's like, my God.
You know, because he's like, it's not in its own frame of reference. Of course it is. The gimbal allows that to be in the same frame, in its own frame of reference. And if it, but he's, I don't know what fallacy this is, but the fact that it processes at all, which is, verifiable, tells us all we need to know, that his claim of it not being in an independent frame of reference is just not true. It is processing independently already.
No, I had a video from a Dartmouth professor of astronomy, PhD professor, right? who says, I was going to say that says otherwise, Whip says, you're smarter than this. Who does say it's an independent frame of reference, right? In his Foucault pendulum video that I played.
That is textbook appeal to authority. Like, since this guy said it, it's true, right? Like, bringing up authorities isn't a fallacy. It's like, since this guy said it, it's true, right? I mean, no. And then it's a credentials fallacy. It's like, oh, you don't have the credentials to argue with that guy or disagree with him, so therefore it must not be true. So it's like, wow, you want to talk about fallacies? Moving on.
a little clip of in one of my videos. And it's like, he's a PhD professor, and you're telling me what's it, you know more than him about Foucault pendulums?
Well, yeah, he does think.
And what I said is they contradict themselves by saying it's an independent frame of reference, but then it wouldn't move on its own. Like, dude, if the Earth is moving underneath it and it's an independent frame of reference, that means the Earth's moving independently of it. So it would not move back and forth. We push the pendulum back and forth and then it precesses, right? But it would slowly move based on the Earth spinning underneath it because it's established its own independent frame of reference with the gimbal. If it's the Earth moving, right? Or at least I would have to test it to the same exact like relationship to see. There's no doubt that the principle of what I'm saying is true, but it's like, well, depending on what they claim the angular resolution and how much of the independent or angular motion and rotation and then relative to the amount of independence that the gimbal establishes, blah, 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 blah. And you could probably test this. You know, you could put on like a merry-go-round and spin it to equivalent angular motion and then see if once it sits still, it moves at all, right? I've never tested it. I'm just saying intrinsically it's contradictory to say the gimbal establishes an independent frame of reference because, you know, in case you don't know, you have a pendulum attached to the Earth. They say it proves the Earth spins. And you push the pendulum. You have to push the pendulum and it goes back and forth. And as it goes back and forth, it starts to precess, right? It doesn't go perfectly back and forth. It precesses relative to where you are on the Earth, right? So they say it's because the Earth's spinning underneath it. I'm like, okay, well, if the Earth's spinning underneath it, but the gimbal establishes an independent frame of reference, so of course that pendulum is attached to the Earth, right? So the gimbal has to make an independent frame of reference attached to the pendulum or that wouldn't be able to measure because it's attached to the same thing it's supposed to be measuring. Anyway, so as the Earth is moving, the gimbal should be independent of that movement just enough that it would move back and forth, not precess as you push it back and forth, but it would move. So anyway, moving on.
He knows more.
And by the way, like this is like for me, like that's just like one thing that they never rebut. And it's like I would need to see an actual test with the actual direct relationship proving it. They've never provided it. It seems contradictory to me, right? But it's like not even my actual like my best rebuttal or my most specific rebuttal to the pendulum, right? But anyway, move on.
It's just funny. I
All
wish
right,
you could have. Go ahead.
Let's hear a little more. We don't want to get too deep into the analysis. We want to let Craig have a little bit of the fun.
Oh,
Time,
true, yeah.
you know, and the Globers assume that these stars are infinite distances away and, you know, many light years within a near perfect vacuum of nothingness. So that.
How does that have anything to do with what Craig said? Nothing at all.
See, they don't understand it. Because that being so far away would alter the amount of motion translated to the Earth through the Machian principle. So it literally has everything to do with it, but you are lost, McToon. Like always, you're lost, bro.
Red herring.
For those stars
Literally
to move around
not.
the Earth and that far away, they'd have to exceed the assumed constant speed of light, and that's why they would say it's not possible. None of that matters. We don't believe in any of those fairy tales. So anyway, if there is a sidereal rotation detected, which there is, and it's actually different than the solar rotation, it's not exactly the same.
It should not be.
That actually goes to show you on its face that there's a difference between the rotations based on the actual movement of the bodies themselves, not the Earth. And then you have the wobble of the Earth changing the angle. You have alleged parallax, which is contradictory because it changes the angle. Then you have the elliptical orbit changing the angle of the sun, and all of this would change the difference between the sidereal and solar rotation. So anyway, that's what this is all about, sidereal rotation. So
None of what Craig talked about was on this topic. Craig brought up the Foucault pendulum. That's it. Why is he talking about stars? Craig talked about the pendulum. Didn't talk about Einstein.
He doesn't understand it. I'm saying that even if the Earth is stationary, the pendulum could precess. If the Earth is moving around, even Einstein himself would admit the validity in the principle, the Machian principle. But of course, when he says that it's exceedingly small, he's talking about how the stars are a great distance away, and that it wouldn't work with relativity because if the stars were that great distance away, as they spin around the Earth, they would have to exceed the speed of light to keep up with the same rotation going all around the Earth. And of course, relativity attributes a constant speed to light. So it would contradict relativity on its face for those stars furthest away to be going over the speed of light. So it wouldn't work within relativity. That's what I'm explaining. But I'm like, of course, it doesn't matter. We don't believe in any of that nonsense. And none of that matters. It is the principle that's being invoked. And they still can't address it. It's insane.
In summary, I'm not keeping up with time at all. But basically, you beg the question that the Earth's a spinning ball and say that this confirms it. Now, if you had a vortex within a toroid, you would also get a drift. If you had a translation of motion with any medium of exchange, you would have a drift. You can deny it and say, no.
Wait a second. What did he say?
Vortex and the toroid. Wait till he show his image of this
Okay,
torus.
hold on.
the elliptical orbit, changing the angle of the sun, and all this would change the difference between the sidereal and solar rotation. So anyway, that's what this is all about.
All right,
Sidereal
so this is my rebuttal to this pendulum. Like I said, you can go watch it.
Two different things going on.
of the sun, and all this would
The Foucault pendulum. The pendulum.
time at all, but drift.
What did he say?
Orbit changes a
Of what?
So,
God,
I know he-
yeah, he's trying to play both sides. He's trying to say, well, your model doesn't work. And when he's talking about our model, he gets to talk about Einstein. True.
Yep.
He needs to correctly understand Einstein, which he doesn't.
Projection.
When he's talking about his model, he doesn't agree with Einstein. And he says Einstein is, doesn't apply.
Yeah.
Then he can't bring Einstein into it. He has to bring in his own specific cause. And like he always says, he needs to have specific, he makes a claim of specificity. Therefore, he has the burden of proof. Those are his words.
Yeah, that's the smartest you've sounded in years.
Let's hear more.
drift. You had translation of motion with any medium of exchange, you would have a drift. You can deny it and say no, but Einstein himself explains this in his letter in 1913 to Ernst Mach.
Okay, why is he talking about Einstein and Mach in his model?
Yeah,
That's
I can't stand listening to these guys. Good night. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like, I'm using them to try to teach the fallacious nature of their rebuttals that are propped up in the algorithms, and everyone turns to them whenever they're looking into this to try to figure out what the globe paradigms arguments are, so they have to be rebutted. Yeah, it's like painful to listen to all the gaslighting, the ad homs, the smugness, how arrogant they are, how like cocky they act, how much they lie, how much they personally insult and attack. But it is what it is, right? Like, I'm trying to use them to teach the Globers.
that's where he gets wrong there.
That it would drag the pendulum around on a stationary Earth due to the movement around it. So it's as simple as that, and has a two direct
I
correlation.
really
with
want to
latitude things.
expose them with like relativity, though. Okay, so we're gonna move through this to get to that point because we're already like an hour in.
Consistent with area.
Is it intellectually dishonest? I think the swing isn't, and
yeah.
they're like, what? Like that? What?
Basic begging the question fallacy from 1851. The first time they did it, it went the wrong way. They kept messing with it. There was
That they didn't
There
have
you
predictions for what Witsit's going to say as his evidence for flatness and his evidence for stationariness. He will
You might be-
probably not talk at all about the flat Earth. He will
You might be
probably attempt to poke holes in the globe, and probably won't even be relevant.
Wow.
Will
Couple
he?
surprises for you here. Couple
Really?
surprises for you here. Yeah.
Oh.
Wait and see here.
Oh, all right. Well,
Don't you
like-
guys? Can you guys level with me? Isn't it weird how like like concerned and obsessed with my opinion that these people are? Isn't that kind of weird? It's kind of weird, right? It's kind of gay, right? I mean, like, call it what you want to call it. It's weird.
I like surprises, but well, somebody mentioned that let's see, Waikiki House says there's a distinct lack of bros in this debate. So I have a little treat for you, Waikiki House.
We don't
Bro.
care.
Was probably let's get me surprised.
got it. Heliocentrism, hence why when you see people obsessively stalk flat Earth for years and build entire channels about it and constantly stalk all the proponents of flat Earth, they are almost always atheistic, nihilistic, materialists because they cling on to this idea, this worldview, this philosophy that the Earth is not special, nothing matters. They have no moral accountability, so there they can stalk people, talk down to them, treat them terribly, dox them, insult them, threaten them, constantly bash them with lies because there's no moral accountability. And that may seem like a bit of digression or something. I'm not trying to poison the well, but I'm pointing out.
He's not trying to poison the well, but what he exactly did was poison.
No, so poisoning the well is when you try to discredit your opponent that you're debating against so that you can say that their argument is wrong. Like, that's what Conspiracy Cats did to me. I didn't even say FTFE at all. I was talking in general. So it actually wasn't poisoning the well. I wasn't saying that everyone that believes in the globe does this. I wasn't saying that FTFE does this. I was saying that the idea of the Copernican principle, which I did, that the Earth is not special or doesn't have a unique position, it leads to atheism and nihilism, and that's where you get these kind of people that can, without any type of moral responsibility or accountability, they think there is no such thing as objective morality or purpose, and they run around doing all these things to people, like attacking them, stalking them, hating on them, insulting them, blah blah blah. That was, and I was like not trying to poison the well, which I wasn't, but I knew someone would try to say I was. Right? I'm like, I'm just trying to explain that that's what this leads to, right? Because I'm actually trying to reach the audience with like the meta of the conversation. So I wasn't saying FTFE does all these things, therefore his argument's wrong, and he's not a credible source. No, this has nothing to do with it. You can be super toxic and hate on all kinds of people and still be right about an argument. I wasn't saying that he was incompetent or that I was just saying that because of this idea, the world has been tricked into atheism. Many people have, and they think that it's okay to act like that, right? It's very simple. So this wasn't poisoning the well, but they don't understand how to apply logical fallacies. So.
In the well.
It's pouring poison in.
In fact, he could have actually started by presenting evidence. Instead, he doesn't talk about it at all. He won't even touch the topic until he insults everybody first.
So the fact that he's saying insults everybody shows that they're personally offended by what I said, because this applies to them. I said no one's name. Think about, I'm going to play it again. Think about how I describe these people. And think about how, like, FTFE starts talking, he gets triggered. Because you can tell that they know I'm describing them. I'm describing them. I'm describing their fan base. I'm just describing toxic behavior. They can barely sit through it. They get mad because they know this is a description of what they do.
He's not trying to poison the
This, while the proponents of heliocentrism, hence why when you see people obsessively stock flat earth, it's based on philosophy.
Listen to what I said.
Heliocentrism is a religion that's never been proven. It's based on philosophy, the idea of the Copernican principle that the earth must not be special. Hence why when you see people obsessively stock flat earth for years, and build entire channels about it and constantly stalk all the proponents of flat earth, they are almost always atheistic, nihilistic, materialists, because they cling on to this idea, this worldview, this philosophy that the earth is not special, nothing matters. They have no moral accountability. So there they can stalk people, talk down to them, treat them terribly, dox them, insult them, threaten them, constantly bash them with lies because there's no moral accountability. And that may seem like a bit of digression or something. I'm not trying to poison the well, but I'm pointing out
He's not trying to poison the well.
I was just reading his chat when I was debating, and they were saying all this hateful stuff about me. So I just called his chat out. That's actually what I was doing. Moving on.
But what he exactly did was poison the well. He touched the cats, and if you beyond, he spent 9 when he had chances to, right? And if you watch with him and Conspiracy Cats and Mr. Sensible, when he had chances to,
he talks about poisoning the well, and then he brings up Conspiracy Cats debate. You can go watch it on Modern Day Debates. His opening presentation was a literal textbook poisoning the well, flooded with ad homs. That actually was, because he specifically says Austin Witsit believes in Atlantis. Austin Witsit just talks real fast, and he starts insulting me, ad homing me, trying to discredit me specifically before he debates me. Right, that is poisoning the well.
To respond, he spent 90% of his response time crying that they were mean to him, instead of just
I destroyed them in that debate, bro. It was one of the worst slaughters I've ever been a part of, and he's sitting here defending it. That's all you gotta know about him. Moving on.
Was true, and that the earth does not occupy special.
Is an inertial plane
Called an inertial plane. Now I call it an inertial plane because
there's no such thing as an inertial plane in a magnetic field.
And right when he paused me, I said, I call it an inertial plane because it's an actual description of what's going on. Inertia meaning unchanging. Therefore, it's a plane that's not changing. It's in inertia. It's an inertial plane, as opposed to just calling it the block domain wall, which is just named after the person who discovered it. I call it the inertial plane because it actually describes what's happening, right? And then he says, there's no such thing as an inertial plane. And then he goes on to describe exactly what I'm saying. And he says there's a neutral plane in between the north and the south of the magnetic field. It's hilarious.
It's a Ken Wheeler.
It's Ken Wheeler. That's just Ken Wheeler invented that, and that doesn't exist. It's not a thing.
Actual description of the phenomena, meaning unchanging, at rest, a plane of inertia. It's oftentimes referred to as a block wall or block domain.
Okay, block wall exists,
Mm-hmm.
and a block wall is actually in a magnetic field. A block wall is the part of a magnetic field where it's neither north nor south, right? It's inside the magnetic field, and where it's neutral, basically. So on a bar magnet,
Oh, it's a plane where it's neutral, basically. Interesting.
I have a bar magnet. It would be an actual plane.
There's no such thing as an inertial plane. It's just a plane that's neutral. What an idiot. Hi, Austin. I'd happily host your debate on flat Earth. Whoever has a neutral. I hosted a 9/11 debate a while back. How do I contact you? Thank you for the 450 super chat. You can email me at witsitgetsit@gmail.com and just put that in the subject matter. Thank you for the super chat.
Inside this particular, because this is bar magnet, right? Unlike the magnetic field of the Earth, the magnetic field of the Earth is very much non-symmetrical. It varies all over the.
Oh, if we reify the globe, it's all over the place. It varies all over the place. It's not symmetrical and it doesn't work. Yeah, we know. That's why Harvard says that they have over a century. I have a PDF explaining over a century of failed attempts to explain the dynamo model of the globe. They still don't have a working magnetic model. They have bits and pieces that work here and there, and they have all these different theories they combine. They don't have a perfectly working model at all. Oh, you said perfectly. Like, oh, it just doesn't explain the phenomena. There's pros and cons to all the different ones. They've been trying to work on it for over a century, and they can't figure it out. That's the problem. Of course, with the plane right through the middle, it makes perfect sense.
Of it is different all over the place. The bowl shape is a very irregular place. It's not a plane, certainly.
No,
Right.
no.
So
Certainly, it's not a plane right through the middle of the magnetic field. Certainly. I'm gonna have to kind of fast forward some because we're only 23 minutes in, and we're already an hour and a half. So I'll try to get it in within 3 hours. It's gonna be a long stream. Smash the thumbs up, please.
I get an idea where he's going. Was that right? We'll find out. All right, hold on. Here we go.
Domain wall named after the person that first discovered it. In every single magnetic field, there is a plane cut right through the middle of it. Now, of course, it's easy.
No. It's not a plane. If it's an irregular magnetic field, it's not a plane.
Yeah, any actual stable magnetic field has a plane through the middle of it, and they try to map it on the globe without being able to fully explain it and just say, "Oh, it's not. It looks like it has the characteristics of a permanent magnetic field, but it's not a permanent magnetic field. It would just take billions of years to really be able to tell that it's not a permanent magnetic field." And no, the Earth's a globe, so all the data is wrong, and we just can't understand it yet. But the Earth's a globe, I promise. It's like, shut up.
Witsit. You're stupid. You're just parroting somebody.
Who am I parroting? I've never heard anyone make these arguments. I made all of them up in my own mind. I did research and came to my own conclusions. Who am I parroting? Find one person that makes my flat earth arguments. If they do, they're going to tell you they got them from me. Okay? I made the arguments.
Explain on a flat Earth, we are this green portion right here through the middle. That is the plane. We reside within a dielectric plane within the inertial plane. We observe the
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
A
Wheeler.
dielectric plane within the inertial plane? What the hell is that? It's
right.
just
Ken Wheeler.
nonsense. That's Ken Wheeler.
Ken Wheeler's nonsense. Yeah, he's parroting somebody else's nonsense.
Yeah, it's not actual. It's not based. It's not magnetism. It's not based on actual research. It's not based on empirical investigation. It's just invented crap that he was dumb enough to believe when he heard it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Green Bull says Witsit is the most confidently deluded person ever. Let me just, that deserves this. Witsit is the most confidently deluded person ever.
And he still wasn't on the camera. I posted a poll. Everyone vote in the poll. Who do you think is intentionally lying more, Bryant or McToon?
Had to be full screen for that. Oh, and I wasn't full screen. I gotta do it again.
I'll do it again.
I got it right.
Oh man loves my name in his mouth. It's
The
pretty,
digital
it's pretty
demonic
gay,
Davros says, does he mean plane in motion or not in motion? Is he confused, or does inertia mean something different these
It means
days?
unchanging.
There's no ramifications for him to be wrong. He has no, if he's wrong.
He's projecting
just say-
because he just blatantly has been wrong, and we'll just move on.
That is per all Ivy League schools and anyone that you could possibly build. Again, so this is just a magnetic field.
Education, I'm learning so much. Thank you. That's why I'm doing this. Thank you for the $20 super chat, Tiffany Vinci. It's greatly appreciated. Much love, and I'm glad you're enjoying. That is why I'm doing it. I'm hoping some people learn. That's why I want to get into the relativity part.
Over top of it in a ferrocell cell image, we would basically, if you look at the bottom picture and were to flip it over, we would be looking up at the top half of the magnetic field. So this is where the inertial plane would be on the flat Earth, or which is actually just a topographical plane, or the true Earth. The globe doesn't know where this is. Maybe Greg can end up offering some type of answer as to where the inertial plane is, but I doubt it since Harvard can't do it.
There's no such thing as an inertial plane.
They just keep saying it, but he said there's no such thing as an inertial plane, but there's a plane in the middle of the magnetic field, and it's neutral. Yeah, it's an unchanging. And then the guy super chatted and said, "Does it mean in motion or not in motion? Can he make his mind up? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Or is it moving or not moving or inertial? It's like inertial can be moving or not moving. It means unchanging. If it's constant movement, then it's inertial. If it's at rest, it's inertial." And then he goes along with it and then says, "There's no ramifications for me being wrong projection."
Plane.
So, and we're just go ahead. We'll end the vote here because Bryant's getting smoked. So MC Tune 76% is the most is lying the most, or who's intentionally lying more. Everyone says MC Tune. I'll drop another debate or another poll here in a second. Let's continue.
So we have no reason to tell you where it is. Like between two thin membranes of a liquid, right? A ferrofluid. Ken likes these
Watch this.
It's a magnetic membrane, a liquid, right? A ferrofluid between two thin membranes of plastic or something. And then you put a magnet by it and shine light through it. And the thickness of the little liquid in there varies based on the light properties, the light, how much it affects the light varies based on the magnetic field. You're not seeing the magnetic field. You're seeing the effects that the magnetic field had on the liquid.
That comment reminds me, FTFE looks like the secretary for Monsters Inc. I forgot we actually got a video of FTFE that we caught. So here we go. Here is a video of FTFE right after he was watching one of my most recent debates.
I'm watching you, Witsitgetsit. Always watching.
Yo. Here's a selfie. And here it is again. Here's your boy. We caught him on video.
I'm watching you, Witsitgetsit. Always watching.
Yeah. Send you an email, brother. Hope to hear back from you. All right, sounds good. I'll check my emails pretty good. I'm trying to catch up on the older ones, but I will respond probably tonight or tomorrow morning. Thank you for the $5. I don't know if those are dollars, but thank you for the super chat. Much love. Hey, my boy Isabella Live 2.0 has been a member for 2 months. Yes, you bring the facts. Thank you, and thank you for being a miswit, bro. Much love. All right, moving on.
Liquid, and that changes how the light goes through it. It's not a magnetic field modifying light.
No one said it is. He doesn't say that. I don't say that. No one says that the field is modifying the light. You have a supercell, a ferrocell. What you have is two optical flats. That's the best way to make it, which are really expensive, super flat pieces of glass. You put ferrofluid and oil in between them. You press it down, right? Then you can super glue the outside of it. Then you line the outside with LED strip lights, like what I use to make this thing right here, the little LED strip lights. And then you turn it on, and you put a magnet over it. The magnet reacts with the ferrofluid. As the ferrofluid reacts to the magnetic field, right, it creates pressure mediation, constructive and destructive lines of interference, right, where it's actually it's manipulating the density of the fluid relative to the force and the pressure exerted from the magnetic field. And the light is going to illuminate the contrast and density distribution, and it gives you a visualization of what the magnetic field seems to look like based on where it is interacting with the ferrofluid. No one's claiming that the light is being manipulated by the magnet. No one's ever said that. But he has to strawman what we say so that he doesn't have to actually address that this is probably the best invention in the 21st century. You get stuff like this. And this is very damning if you actually understand it. Look, all of a sudden, oh, look, the planets matching that on a geocentric Earth. Oh, my goodness. All these motions, you have like all of a sudden starts to make a lot of sense. And with a flat Earth, you would be in that. And then the magnetic flux on a flat projection matches these ferrocell images perfectly if you see the top right. So he has to try to discredit and say we think that the light is bending the magnetic field. It's bending the light. No one ever said that. If anyone said that, they're wrong. I've never said that. Moving on.
And you know that magnetic fields don't modify light because you can take a strong neodymium magnet,
strawman fallacy,
like warping around it. That field. Does.
He's like, look, you would see the light look different on the end of this magnet.
Austin, you have no clue.
I have no clue. Much love, brother Austin and chat. Truth prevails. Hey, thank you for the $5 super chat. Question the answers. Much love, brother. Thank you for the support.
Wheeler, you have.
Here's another ferrocell image of it. If you look,
I would definitely appeal to the consensus of mainstream over one idiot, Ken Wheeler, who has no clue what he's talking.
The consensus of mainstream is that they don't understand magnetism within particle physics. They can't fully explain it. They came up with a convention called virtual particles. It's very confusing. They're not sure how it all works. There's a Lamb shift effect that it showed us that there's way too much energy. They had to create a virtual particle construct to make the math work because it wasn't predicted, and that we had too much energy based on our predictions of particle physics. Mainstream consensus says that they don't know. They say that electrostatics and magnetism is the exchange of virtual photons, who, of course, Richard Feynman will tell you that virtual photons are not an actual thing. It's an abstraction. It's never been the input or output of any experiment ever. It is simply a construct we've come up with to make our equations work. They're questionable or their existence is questionable at best, right? So that's what they are, and they can't explain it. And that's why I said, you guys can make fun of me, but you definitely can't explain it because you just believe in the mainstream consensus, and they don't have an answer for you regarding this. And then he responds with this. It's so bad. It's so bad that people can actually watch this and not understand how incredibly wrong he is about everything.
About, but can fool people and get paid by them to fool them and, make a little bit of money. I don't know.
And he's projecting because he gets money for lying to people on purpose and fooling them, as does FTFE. When I lost all my actual money, I burned through all my savings through the tour. I got my 6-figure job offer removed and revoked from me, right? And then trying to trust one of them, now lost the money I had set aside right before my baby girl gets here. It's blatant projection. Moving on.
People super chat him a lot during his live streams, and it's just stupid.
Look how mad he is that some people support me on my channel. People super chat him a lot, and it's just stupid. It's just stupid. People super chat me just to be a grown man talking about him, and that's good. But people super chat him a lot, and it's just stupid. Look at his face.
And, make a little bit of money. I don't know. People super chat him a lot during his live streams, and it's just stupid.
And this is why he told Brian, because he's Brian's daddy. He was like, you are not allowed to give him money. You are not allowed to pay him and keep your word and give him money for that debate. You're not allowed, because the idea of me making any money and being able to survive and stuff like that infuriates him. He actually wants to try to ruin my life. This is the kind of people that you deal with. I don't want to get too personal. This is scolding the Globers, right? Anyway, super sorry off topic, but can you please point me in the direction to find out where the books that were removed from the Bible fit in sequentially? Where they fit in sequentially. The Bible, the books removed from the Bible and the Apocrypha are all the end time books. The Apocrypha are all end times. But if you have a specific question, you can try to maybe email me about that. But you look at the Apocrypha, and those are end time prophecies, and then you can look at Enoch, which is, in my opinion, creates the setting, and arguably so does Jubilees before Genesis. But thank you for the super chat. Much love. Haha, this one's just to piss off Tune. Thank you, Adam, for the super chat. Oh man, he gets super chat. It's just stupid. Thank you for the super chat and the support, Adam. Much love, brother. All right, let's move on.
He's a photographer. Go back to photography.
Look at the top left.
I think you might have been talking about Ken Willer.
See optical flat. Interfere to the right here in the middle, you have a black hole, we'll call it. And that is actually the source of the magnetism. Counterintuitively to some people, actually, as that gets
He's laughing, but he doesn't understand it at all. He doesn't understand magnetism at all.
bigger, the strength that gets bigger proportion to the strength of the magnetic field, as opposed to the spatial extension of the field. But we won't get all the way into that. But that would be on the center of the Earth, of course, with the flat Earth. And then again, here, if you see that white line in the bottom left picture of the Ferrel cell image, that's where the Earth would be. So let's see if this makes any sense. Looking at
that doesn't match.
It
doesn't match the magnetic field of the Earth, even for flat Earth.
There's zero evidence for any of that. That's just kind of fun.
There's zero evidence for any of that. This is what I said. The magnetic field has we'll call it a black hole in the center of it. There's zero evidence for any of that. I'm on the screen are literal Ferrel cell images of a magnetic field. Here it is. There's zero evidence for any of that. No, there's literal evidence for it. And then what I show right after this shows it on the Earth. Yeah, goobers. I think I just got a text about a generous donation on Rockfin. Keep killing it. Thank you, Jogetta Sun for the $2 on Rockfin. And then thank you for the very generous tip on Rockfin, Brian Webbear. The only reason I can think of for their obsession with their flailing, hopeless attempts to prove the globe has more to do with disproving the fact that there is a most high creator God because of horrible things they've done in the past. Yeah, maybe so, or even like future moral accountability frightens them for sure. I think that is, I don't think that they intellectualize it. I don't think they have eyes to see or ears to hear. I think that they're kind of like children that have yet to learn. They can't see it, they don't understand it. Like, because that they've made this conscious decision to turn from the creator because of like depravity and they don't like moral accountability. So I think you're over the mark on that one. I think that's very accurate. But it makes me sound arrogant when I say that, and that's my honest opinion. But thank you for the $100 tip on Rockfin, Brian Webbear. Very generous, brother. Thank you so much. Moving on.
funny. It's just all these sacred geometry pictures and stuff from Ken Wheeler, and there's not a bit of evidence for any of it.
No. Yeah, he calls it.
There's not a bit of evidence for any of it. That is the evidence. You can look up mainstream sources that will tell you that this is how a magnetic field is. That it's how it works. Like everyone knows it. Sacred geometry images. That's how a magnetic field manifests, Brian. I thought you were a professor in physics, bro. This is sad.
The
Just-
sacred flower or something.
Flower
Whoop de
flag,
doo.
yeah.
It looks pretty. That's not a thing.
What an idiot.
Looking at the actual data that
Alright.
we have from reality on the Earth.
I don't want to like lower my vibration and call them names.
Well, here is a depiction of the magnetic flux on a flat projection.
Oh, this I love.
So they just said that it has nothing to do with the Earth, doesn't match at all, doesn't look like anything on the Earth, and now they got nothing to say. Now they got nothing to say. Now they're like, oh, I love this. Let's change the subject because it does clearly match. You see the picture right there. Thank you for the $4.99 super chat, Ruth KB. Thank you very much. Much love. Thank you for support. Right, you see this right here. You see the top right. Right now, look at the magnetic flux on the Earth. Right, or I can't even show you guys. Share screen. So if you go over here and you go to magnetic flux, this is the magnetic flux on a flat projection. Look at the top right picture of the ferrocell. What a coincidence that there's a hole right in the middle and that there's a flux around it, a vortex of movement around it. Again, look at the top right, hole in the middle, vortex around it. This is exactly what we have on the Earth, and the inertial plane cuts right through the middle. You have a double torus. So that top right image clearly matches this. Oh, he's just making it up. There's no evidence at all. This is live data. This is actual live data from the Earth mapped out on a flat projection, right? And then he says, I never show it on a globe. Look, well, I don't care to show it on a globe. Are you kidding me? Let's show it on a globe. Oh, wow. It makes so much sense down here, doesn't it? What is going on right here? What's this? What's all this right here? What is this big spot right here up in the globe, not near the pole? How does that make sense? What is this on the other side of it? How does that make sense? And then, of course, the North Pole makes perfect sense. Yeah, because that's the actual center of the Earth. So you have, of course, you have the same spin. That's correct. As you turn down to the globe at the south, it just gets crazy. Look at this. It gets crazy. What is that? Where's that? Why is that not at the South Pole? Why is that not the actual South Pole? And you see where they have the torus depiction right here. What is it? What's up with this? Okay, or the depiction is this. And there's listing landmass, obviously, in my opinion. So this just continues out. And look how perfectly it is in the north, extending out over the Earth. It's a vortex, dude. I mean, you can get triggered about it, but it doesn't change anything. Look at it. Then it will go on to say, I don't show the oceans, or I try to change it and show the here, let's look at the wind on a flat Earth. Okay, going around the outside, scrolling around in the middle. Let's look at the oceans. Okay, on the flat Earth. Now let's look at the globe. All over the place. You got it going right through the middle. You got the equator right through the middle. Let's see here what we got for wind. This is hectopascals, 10 hectopascals. What is that? It's all over the place. He's like, I never show the globe. Dude, the globe is the stronger part of showing this data. It's like a joke. What is this? Oh, look at that. Oh, we got the winds on the outside. No way. Are you serious? Look at that just like making sense. How dare the flat earthers? And as it pertains to what they're talking about right now, again, just to recap really short, briefly here. There it is. Magnetic flux. There's the magnetic flux, top right, black hole in the middle. You got the flux around the center. So anyway, we'll continue on, but it's like, come on, bro. Come on now. Globers. We're schooling the Globers, man. Pay your tuition. Present, share screen.
This I love. Let's hear what he says.
And as you can see, it matches perfectly
That's another aspect.
with the ferrocell you see here in the top right of these images. It matches perfectly.
Hi from Australia. I'm actually happy that you don't have to debate Dave anymore. He's super low frequency. Thank you for the $15 super chat. Daniel Baker, much love. Thank you for support. Yeah, he is, but I just think that it's maybe kind of needed for just for the new flat earthers who look into it and they get shown Professor Dave. They need to see him exposed live where actually he just pretends to be real smart. He gives off this illusory confidence that he can be convincing to people that don't know. And he's really just like an ugly, low vibration person. You're right about that. But it's like he needs to be exposed live, in my opinion, on a fair, neutral platform with moderation where he just gets exposed. Therefore, when they prop him up in the algorithms, he gets knocked down. And I think someone needs to do it, and I'll be the one to do it. I'm kind of used to having to take the bullets of like low vibration attacks and constantly being attacked by tons of people because someone has to go in here and defend the flat earth efficiently, in my opinion. Moving on.
Perfectly with what we see in reality. Now,
All right. That picture there. This is he mentioned it last night on where it came from. It's Bob Wins. BobWins.com.
Thank you for the stupid super chat from
So here we can go.
JR Tech.
Right here.
Okay. Not a very high vibration chat there, my guy.
Flux. And so this is actually pretty similar to what he showed.
Yeah, I just showed it all for you guys, obviously.
He said, how did I know he was going to say this? Well, it turns out you can change this to a globe. Is that all over the place? Weird. That seems to match its rotation.
Did you guys see where I just now showed you that it is all over the place? He intentionally doesn't show where it's all over the place. Then he accuses me of intentionally lying and misleading people about this. And he says it matches the rotation. Yeah, Sagnac effect, which is what you use in the gyroscope. Sagnac, who discovered it, said it's a vortex in the ether. Yeah, there's a vortex in the ether. Wow, what a coincidence that the magnetic flux matches that motion. Oh my gosh, no way.
That's not all over the place, Witsit.
It literally is all over the place. I just showed it. So just if you're watching the video, you can obviously just rewind and see I just showed it, right? That's why I showed it, because I knew he was going to say that.
Not at all. And
Austin, can you explain how you don't understand the law demonstrating without a permit but have a PhD understanding of physics? Blackmore, like, yo, this person's a psycho. I understand that the First Amendment says that I'm allowed to speak and that I have the right to be heard, certainly in public forum, and that the fact that government makes up a law that's unconstitutional, it says we have to give you permission to speak and you have to go sit in the free speech area where no one can hear you, doesn't mean I have to abide by it. I actually cited it in my paperwork when I was in court, right? Which is, it says, and the judge said I was correct and then shut down the government in her response to this. So this is so funny. I, by myself, was writing very high level arguments in court. The judge agreed with me and shut down the government's attorneys, right? When they tried to argue against it, saying he's right. It says that if a law is unconstitutional, you can completely disregard it. And in fact, you have the right to challenge it on its face, its facial validity. So thanks for playing. Moving on.
And I don't know if he really lacks the ability to think about this. Looking at this here, you can see it's just going in a circle on this map.
Okay, we just covered this. He just intentionally lies. Well, it's not going all over the place.
Wow.
Wow.
Right. In order.
Look at this.
Right. Well, makes sense. It's not just
Look at that.
It's not just flat earthy stuff, right? It's doing
It makes way more sense on the flat earth. He just shows it himself where it's like
these kinds of real makes sense on a globe. Look at this, right?
Look at it. Yeah, look at this. It makes total sense on the globe. Look at it.
This makes sense on a globe. Look at this, right? consistent.
And boom. He's like,
Get these weird.
it's not just flat stuff. And then he
Wow,
backs
circle
out.
looks like a circle. I'm really stunned.
And I just showed where it messes up on the globe.
Can't explain that.
Flat
Not to be too
earthy
irritative,
stuff.
but moving on. So here is a video. And as you can see, this is the same thing that I showed you in the images. People always want a flat Earth model, and of course, the globe doesn't even have a working model, so that's hilarious, and you can't even explain from the core out or accurate depiction of layers within the Earth's layers or what the magnetic field is. But that's
not a model.
where you live. You live within that. It's the only way that it could possibly exist and be sustained. So if you want to know where you actually live, instead of
That's called a strawman fallacy. I didn't say that was a model. I said everyone asked for a model, even though ironically the globe doesn't have a working model from the core out, including their predictions about the layers were all incredibly wrong. But if you want to know, it would be you live within something like that. That's my opinion. That's what I'm saying. That's right. I didn't claim it was a perfect model. That's stupid. That's called a strawman.
we were brainwashed with. Just really soak that in.
Where did
We
this
reside
come
within
from? How can you just assert that?
Now look at the interference lines. You will see that that's the flower of life depiction again, as you can see. And this would be able to be.
Of course, FTV is just over here like talking in the middle of my thing, over talking it, trying to undermine it to the chat. Just say a same script. There's no evidence for the flat Earth. I just showed an inertial plane within a magnetic field. That is evidence for a flat Earth. And of course, you got this dude over here like, I don't see evidence for the flat Earth. I don't see evidence at all for the flat Earth. But guess what?
I'm watching you. Witsit. Always watching.
detected in certain portions of our life. This would
The south magnetic pole.
Okay, we're gonna move on to when they get wrong about relativity because we're already so
Pushing
far.
current within the Earth.
Yeah,
Right.
and he said there were
Of the planets pay for his lifestyle.
Here we go.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna do that, then Abraham married his sister. Right. So
Like I said, unfortunately, it looks like pretty clearly this is going to be at least a 3-hour stream, so it is what it is. But here we are. We're about to get into where they start to really fall apart. So we're going to put them in their place here. Definitively, they'll pretend this never happened. They'll keep saying their scripts. They'll keep claiming, I don't know. What's his name? Fight the Tight Shirt was just in Discord the other night, like a couple nights ago. And he was like, you don't even understand relativity. You're completely wrong about everything. I'm like, what did I get wrong? He's like, I don't know. I don't understand it. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I don't understand relativity. I'm like, then how do you know that I'm wrong about it? He's like, I don't know. I don't understand relativity or how you're wrong regarding relativity, but I know you're wrong. I'm like, how can you know I'm wrong if you don't understand it? I've talked to people that said you were wrong. I just don't fully understand it yet, but I know you don't understand it. I'm like, how can you know I do or don't understand it if you don't understand it yourself yet? He's like, I just know you're wrong. I'm like, what? Dude. Anyway, moving on.
if that's a thing, then yeah. Right. He knows.
than just a coincidence, or it doesn't really look like it matches to me, or whatever. So anyone that's being intellectually
Oh my gosh, yeah. It is well explained.
honest with there's no way it's a coincidence.
He said, yeah, it is well explained. No, it's not. They just say it's just a coincidence in the heliocentric model.
Someone wants to explain to me how it matches perfectly within it, I guess that would be interesting. But yeah, so there you go. So here is Albert Einstein, also known as a fuzzy-haired crackpot that was legitimately pretty insane.
He doesn't, but he wouldn't want to ad hom somebody.
An ad hom is whenever your argument against someone else's argument is that you insult them. If someone says the necessary antecedent to gas pressure is physical containment, and if we have gas pressure allegedly sitting next to a vacuum of 10 to the negative 17 torr that violates the second law of thermodynamics, which says entropy will increase and pressure will fill the available space violently seeking equilibrium. Therefore, there must be some type of containment because gas pressure is defined as the energy or force exerted on the walls of a container. So the necessary antecedent to gas pressure is physical containment. Therefore, your model cannot be accurate. And then someone says, you're just such a stupid flurf. Oh, all physics is wrong. You're so stupid. That's called an ad hom. Your argument can't be an insult. Okay. Maybe don't talk about fallacies if you don't know how to define them. My argument is not Einstein's wrong because he was insane. And I very clearly clarified this.
Right. Austin takes the high road. Right. He never.
I literally do try to take the high road, which is why I'm not showing all the emails from Professor Dave, all the emails from FTFE, and all the emails from Bryant Myers, completely exposing them. And if they keep on lying about me, I will have to do that. But yeah, I do try to take the high road, actually.
Never ad homs, or he wouldn't.
Which is why I've ignored you for like 3 years until Schooling the Globers series.
Well, would he?
Yeah. Well, he did more than that during Flattoberfest with Einstein. He like went into the married his cousin thing and just got into it. It's like, come on, that's it.
Come on. Don't attack my hero with it. He was going to talk about how he married his cousin. He married his cousin. Yeah, so what with it? He married his cousin and then wrote about how he wanted to have sex with her minor daughter and forgot to put clothes on and was openly an ethnic supremacist, where he wrote letters about how Japanese people were akin to dogs and everyone was beneath them if they weren't Jewish. But how dare you talk about him? He stole all of his work, but how dare you talk about my hero Einstein?
Well, I mean, if you're gonna do that, then Abraham married his sister. Right? So
Wow.
if that's a thing, then obviously anything that came out of Abraham is wrong.
Which is a
Right,
straw
but-
man, because of course I'm not saying that because Einstein married his cousin, what he said is wrong. I just expose him because I think he's super weird and he's a grabbler and he should be exposed because he's propped up as some type of hero. I go on to specifically say, not that that means what he said is wrong, so let's cover what he said. And then he goes on to straw man me. Oh, that means everything Abraham said is wrong. Oh, he's such a Christian. He had to pull up a biblical character to bury them and bash them. You're a fake.
That
then-
logic.
And then he'll use Einstein to support
I'm not the judge of anyone's salvation, so I retract that.
his claims.
And didn't even come up with anything himself. But that doesn't necessarily mean what he said is wrong. So let's check out what he did.
You got like 2 minutes, man.
I say that doesn't necessarily mean that what he said is wrong. So let's check out that. Right. So everything, their whole little rant here just got destroyed if they had just not paused too fast.
That
then-
logic.
And then he'll use Einstein to support his claims.
And didn't even come up with anything himself. But that doesn't necessarily mean what he said is wrong. So let's check out what he did.
You got like 2 minutes, man.
I got you. This guy invented special relativity to counter experiments that revealed the Earth was motionless in space, which actually led him to general relativity, who had to claim that, where he had to claim that the center of the Earth cosmology was viable. And here's him saying no optical experiment can prove that the Earth is moving and it could be geocentric.
Thanks for all you do, Austin. Keep killing it. Enjoy all your streams. Thank you very much for the $20 tip and the kind words. Willy Wonka, much love.
Oh, hold on a second. Now he would
For the tip on Rockfin. Shout out to the 37 legends on Rockfin. Shout out to the 427 legends we have on YouTube. If you guys don't mind, we smash the thumbs up and help us break the algorithms. So thank you for helping us out. And don't make me go back over there to the Artemis live stream because it's exhilarating and it is the cutting edge of science and space exploratory advancement.
he mentioned it. He mentioned this
Didn't even come up
last
with anything
night.
himself. But that doesn't necessarily mean what he said is wrong. So let's check out what he did.
You got like 2 minutes, man.
I got you. This guy invented special relativity to counter experiments that revealed the Earth was motionless in space, which actually led him to general relativity, who had to claim that, where he had to claim that the center of the Earth cosmology was viable. And here's him saying no.
Okay. You notice that after the word experiment, there's a little punctuation mark. That punctuation mark is a period. In the actual quote, there's a comma and the sentence continues. Now he mentioned that this was a cherry-picked quote yesterday.
Cherry picking means that if taking it in context, that it would actually go against and contradict what you're invoking it to claim.
And yet he still used it today. Why?
It's not cherry picking. You've been corrected like 50 times. You are provably a liar who knows the correction but keeps repeating it anyway.
Why would you continue to use this that you know is cherry picked off?
It literally isn't cherry picked. I said that the Globers always say it's cherry picked. He's referring to the debate that happened the day before this. And I say the Globers always try to say this is cherry picked, but it's not. They said because it says about on the end, though the Earth revolves around the sun. But of course, we're invoking it to show that even Einstein, who believed in that, says that you can't use optical experiment to detect it. And that's our point. Our point is that you can't actually detect it, even according to Einstein, who believed that the Earth was revolving around the sun. The rest of the quote makes our point stronger. It isn't cherry picked because our claim that we use the quote for doesn't in any way contradict the entirety of the context. Thanks for playing.
Is it because you are fine deceiving people?
Yeah, and he still did it with the other quote, with a massive shell quote.
Then he goes on to say, I'm deceiving people.
Yeah.
He still used the cherry pick version of that even after.
Is it fine with no? I don't deceive people. Here's the whole quote. So here's the claim that we use the quote for. You can't, even Einstein said you can't use an optical experiment to detect the motion of the Earth around the sun. Even Einstein said that. Meaning even Einstein, who believed the Earth was going around the sun, who came up with relativity, who is famous within your paradigm for giving you the very paradigm you believe in right now, the current theory of gravity, even he said you can't use an optical experiment to detect the motion of the Earth around the sun. Even he said that. No, he didn't. Okay, here's the quote. He did say that. He said that in a speech he gave in Kyoto at a university. No, that's cherry picked. You guys take it out of context. Okay, here's the full context. While I was thinking of this problem in my student years, I came to know the strange result of Michelson's experiment. Soon, I came to the conclusion that our idea about the motion of the Earth with respect to the ether is incorrect if we admit Mickelson's null result as a fact. This was the first path which led me to the special theory of relativity. Since then, since when? Since Michelson, Morley, and his first path, since then, I've come to believe that the motion of the Earth cannot be detected by any optical experiment, though the Earth is revolving around the sun. Albert Einstein, how I created the theory of relativity at Kyoto University. That actually strengthens our point. That last little part there, though the Earth is revolving around the sun, is saying we can't actually use optical experiment to detect the motion of the Earth around the sun, though the Earth's moving around the sun. You basically just have to believe it because you can't use optical experiment to test it. That's what he's saying in the quote. That makes our point stronger. Moving on.
Even after he admitted to me that he knew, he's like, okay, I agree, you know.
Yeah,
But
but
he's
his
still- but he's-
audience, he doesn't mind lying to his audience. Right? He's fine. He's
Yeah,
see,
that's-
Austin is fine lying to his audience because they pay for his lifestyle. He doesn't need to go get a job. He can grift off of them all day, every day. He can do that Mount Meru conference like I'm sure Mark Braun loved. And Tanner Stewart probably was a very big fan of that. And lie to them by leaving in a cherry-picked quote that has a period where there should be a comma. Because lying doesn't matter to him. He just needs to get their money.
And I literally just showed you guys, of course, that I'm not lying to you guys. I'm like transparently honest about my life to almost a detrimental degree. And when I'm wrong, I actually say it. That's the difference. I've changed my opinion on lots of things. Of course, I'm showing you the entire quote, and it means exactly the same thing I said it, which is, according to Einstein, you can't use optical experiment. Since then, I've come to believe that the motion of the Earth cannot be detected by any optical experiment, though the Earth is revolving around the sun. So that's our point. He says that even though he believes the Earth's moving around the sun, and that's Albert Einstein, right? He says you can't use optical experiment to detect the motion of the Earth around the sun. That's our point. So when we go look at the quote and it says the same thing that we said, and we're not lying, we're not deceiving anyone, and we're not cherry picking. You're the liar that keeps saying it's cherry picked. It's either do not attribute malice to that which can be adequately explained with incompetence.
Okay, let's see what he says next. He didn't mention that he cherry picked this. He kind of went a little fast. Obviously, he didn't change his PowerPoint from yesterday.
Optical experiment can prove that the Earth is moving, and it could be.
Yeah, because I don't need a job. I just grift. You mean like having to start my own website, start my own app, throw our own summits, constantly do all kinds of research to make different streams, constantly go on different podcasts, constantly do debates, almost all completely for free, unless people are generous enough to try to support me. I'm supposed to do all of that, start a business, try to hire other flat earth people to try to start getting the information out there, to start homeschool curriculum. I'm doing all this crazy stuff. I'm trying to do all by myself. I'm also trying to edit videos, do all kinds of a million things I literally don't have time for, trying to make music, all this crazy stuff at the same time. This is my job, Looney Tunes. I hate to break it to you. Okay. It is my job. And if people rally around me and make it possible to do it, I'm going to continue to do it. I'm sorry that you're triggered. I'm sorry you triggered that. Like some of us actually are passionate about the truth and will actually sacrifice things to speak it. And you get mad because you're evil and you don't want them to succeed. Moving on.
Geocentric. Here is him saying no terrestrial experiment can prove that the Earth is moving around the sun according to relativity, and that all attempts to try to measure this was negative. And
According to relativity, did he say according to relativity? The question to whether or not the motion of the Earth in space can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments, we have already remarked that all attempts of the nature led to a negative result. This is important. Before the theory of relativity was put forward, it was difficult to become reconciled to this negative result. Of course, it was difficult before relativity. It was not difficult after relativity.
Mhm.
He doesn't understand it. So what did relativity do that made it not difficult? He doesn't know. If you saw my debate with him, I asked him many times, he doesn't know. He still won't answer it. He still don't know because the truth is I said the right answer to the question and they had to say I was wrong. So now they can never admit that what I said was true. So now they can't answer the question. It's very easy to debate and trap liars. So all I have to do is say the truth. They impulsively try to disagree. Now they can't say the truth because I already said it. See how easy it is? So here's the quote that we're referring to right here. To the question whether or not the motion of the Earth in space can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments, we have already remarked that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result. Before the theory of relativity was put forward, it was difficult to become reconciled to this negative result, for results now to be discussed. Albert Einstein, Relativity, the Special and General Theory. And then that's the whole point, is that all terrestrial experiments have a negative result when they try to detect the motion of the Earth. Right, so relativity had to be put forward to try to explain away the negative results and why we can't detect the motion of the Earth. So no terrestrial experiments. So when we say optical experiments, they say that's out of context, that's cherry picked, and they say he's only talking about Michelson-Morley, and he actually says that that was the first thing that led to relativity. That was his first path, and since then he came to the conclusion that no optical experiment can do it. That there's none that can do it. Right, and so he's not just talking about Michelson-Morley. And then they just say, "Oh, it's just talking about light or whatever." And then I show this quote to correct them even further, saying, "No, he said any terrestrial experiment, meaning any experiment on the Earth." Okay, so he had no rebuttal clearly, and he doesn't understand what he's talking about. Moving on.
Right. But more importantly here, I don't know if he's going to. So he's going to probably quote the 2007 book from Hawking, Stephen Hawking here next. That's probably his next slide.
You got
Prior
that
to
right.
relativity, that was hard to cope with. Here's
Okay. Now, if you read this, it's word for word the same.
Actually,
Right.
no, it's not. This is a different quote. So you don't know what you're talking about.
I want to hear what he says about Hawking's book.
him being reiterated by Hawking, and again him being reiterated by Hawking in 2007.
Reiterated by Hawking, huh?
And
Yeah, that's right.
here's a part that I don't think Craig fully understands, or he certainly didn't last time. This is the prediction versus the actual result of Michelson-Morley, which changed all of physics, and they had to say the ruler, their measuring apparatus, physically shrank.
They didn't say.
Hey, Globers, make sure you stay tuned for Schooling Globers episode 3. We're going to be teaching you what you need to understand about relativity as it pertains to the claim that the Earth moves around the sun. Because if you want to believe that, that's certainly fine, and that's your own prerogative. All that I personally ask is that you be respectful to people and try to be nice and at least attempt to be honest. And secondly, actually fully inform yourself about your position prior to being so confident about it, certainly before going and attacking others for not believing it when they are informed on your position. We'll be covering Michelson-Morley and relativity so that you can understand exactly what it is that you believe. That will be Schooling the Globers, episode 3. Stay tuned.
Say that.
Just to deceive us via illusion that the Earth is actually stationary and that time physically expands and slows down. So any attempt to measure and prove that the Earth is moving around the sun is a futile pursuit. So you could never prove it, just happens to always look that way. So in conclusion, just in case people don't understand, that's actually Albert Michelson who did it himself, and he's saying that this conclusion contradicts the explanation which presupposes that the Earth moves. And to this day, you must claim that everything is a magic illusion. The universe is a wizard with a wand, constantly deceiving you via illusion to make you think the Earth is a spinning ball, even though it always showed you that the Earth is a stationary topographical plane. So there you go.
Jeez. It's the same script.
Nice, finished it. 30 seconds left. Almost like you clocked it.
FTFE trying to talk through me. All I hear when he's trying to talk through me, all I see is this, and all I hear.
I'm watching you, Witsit. Always watching.
Craig, you got 10 minutes to take apart what Witsit just presented. Ready to go?
Yeah,
Okay, let's see what Craig says.
I mean, there was no positive evidence there. That was a lot of claims without any actual evidence, which was interesting to see. He talked a lot about that it could be this magnetic field. It looks like
Like I said, I've already covered this debate. You can go look at Schooling Globers, the first episode, and I break down this debate predominantly. You can check that out. Moving on.
is that the similar thing, motion, and
I did the math.
That's right.
the contraction of those 11-meter arms of the
This is
Michelson-Morley
hilarious.
experiment would only have contracted by 55 nanometers, which is 1/1000th the width of a human hair. So that would not have changed the results, the amount that Witsit
Wouldn't.
Okay. This is a very important part of the lesson. Okay. Everyone pay attention. Globers, pay attention. I know you're out there, Brian. I know you're out there, MC Tune. I know you're out there, Fight the Tight Shirt. Pay attention. Please show a little bit of integrity. It's okay that I was right about something and you were wrong about something. Just show some integrity, or at least to the ballers here or those on the fence, right? Just be honest, bro. Being honest is always the best move, right? Don't lie. And if there's a globe, you don't have to lie to defend it. You only have to lie to defend lies. Okay. Let's cover this part. It's very important.
a contraction of those Earth. Earth is 30. So when you plug in those details, when you plug in the velocity of Earth, v squared, and then the velocity of light, c squared, what you actually get is a contraction of those 11-meter arms of the Mugson-Morley experiment would only have contracted by 55 nanometers, which is 1/1000th the width of a human hair. So that would not have changed the results, the amount that Witsit
Wouldn't 1/1000th?
It is right. I did the math.
That's right. Okay.
is claiming to.
Oh, wait, we got a super truther in the chat. Let's put him, we'll use him as an example. Yeah, but this doesn't disprove the globe, witsitgetsit. So why are you hung up on this? And absolutely no, you didn't argue this first. Sorry, but this is a dead end that we talked about in 2014. Oh, you talked about it, then I'm assuming you have a YouTube channel and you could just go over there and do live streams to talk about what you want to talk about. The reason I talk about this is what changed all of physics. I'm sorry, I guess there are certain cults in Flat Earth that say it's a parlor trick because they don't understand it. But this changed all of physics. It's called the greatest failed experiment in history. It's what a precise measurement over 10 times more sensitive than it needed to be to detect the alleged orbit of the Earth around the sun, right? That's heliocentrism versus geocentrism. We're talking about, is the Earth a tilted, wobbling, spinning, revolving ball around the sun, or is it a stationary topographical plane that's contained? That's the conversation. So we have the topography. Is it a plane? Is it planar? Is it spherical? And then we have, is it stationary or is it in motion? Okay. So we're talking about the in motion part, and the whole thing crumbles. The reason I talk about it, because this is my show and I'm the one that does my debates, believe it or not, is because the main thing people get caught up on when trying to look into this is the idea of going against the mainstream, going against the mainstream accepted model. That includes us being in a solar system moving around the sun. So I want to break the cognitive dissonance so they understand the mainstream model is not true. That's why I talk about it, because they changed all of physics to keep that model correct. It is not a dead end. Secondly, no one's made the argument that I make when it pertains to Michelson-Morley combined with the Machian principle, even admitted by Einstein, that translates motions down to the Earth to cause precession and to give you in a translation of Coriolis and centrifugal effects. I've never heard anyone make the specific arguments I make about relativity in the flat Earth realm. I've never heard anyone do it, and I've never heard. It doesn't matter. My point is that I've never heard anyone do it, and I'm not parroting anyone, and that's why I said that. So why don't you just go make your own? Oh, your channel was deleted in 2012. Then go make another one. Go make another one and just leave my chat. Okay, that would be great. Thank you. Moving on.
He talked about
Okay.
when Einstein was saying about how if things are rotating above us, it would create a Coriolis effect on the Earth. However, he missed out the part where Einstein, in the same sentence, said the forces implied in that circumstance would be so small as to be basically unmeasurable. And he was also talking about a large shell rotating around a smaller circular mass. So, citing that is actually implying that the Earth is a globe in any case. The Coriolis forces imparted would be nowhere near what we actually experience on Earth. He brought up Einstein quotes about the saying that we can't measure Earth's orbital motion with optical means. He was specifically talking about the MMX, and that was obviously many years before.
That's Michelson-Morley experiment. That's incorrect. We just showed that's incorrect. We just now showed his actual quote. Once again, he says, if we admit Michelson's null result as a fact, this was the first path which led me to the special theory of relativity. The first path. Since then, I've come to believe that the motion of the Earth cannot be detected by any optical experiment. Okay, moving on.
For the Mugson-Gale-Pearson experiment, which verified everything about Earth movement, and obviously there's
Michelson-Gale shows it matches the 15-degree precession measurement, this ideal rotation, right, within 98% accuracy. And then Michelson came out and said that this verifies the ether. You can't actually, put together Michelson-Morley and Michelson-Gale coherently. And of course, all that shows that the only viable option is a stationary Earth. Moving on.
been much more detailed and accurate MMX type experiments which verify those things as well. When Stephen Hawkins,
the globe needs gravity to form, but gravity theory don't work until mass is formed, so it can't be a globe. Dude, yeah, literally to even claim the Earth's a globe, they have to claim that gravity coalesced it into a sphere. The primary staple and glue of their entire model is the theory of relativity. And no one understands it. No one talks about it. We have flat Earth cult leaders that are telling people not to talk about this, telling people it's a parlor trick. That's why I'm going to talk about it, because it's very important, and most of you people don't understand it. It's important to understand it, and not that I'm claiming to be some genius that understands everything. It's just that we need to have a basic understanding of it moving forward, so you can teach people what happened. You can teach them what actually happened when it comes to the globe deception in modern times. Moving on.
cited Einstein. It's not what Witsit is saying. That book he is talking about is basically an anthology of things that Einstein said, with a foreword by Stephen Hawking of just 3 pages, where he just talks about some of the things that Einstein said. He never reiterates it.
He says he never reiterated it. He literally, the name of the book is A Stubbornly Persistent Illusion, where in which he explains this in context before the book begins, and then he has a whole bunch of Einstein quotes explaining and verifying that take on the situation. Why would he be publishing a book where in the foreword he agrees with it, and then he publishes it by basically reiterating the quotes, putting it under his name with the title Stubbornly Persistent Illusion? All you have to do is read it and comprehend words to know that he is explaining that the stubbornly persistent illusion is that we are at the center, and it looks like we're at the center, even though we're not. So you'll get there.
Or agrees with it. It's just a foreword by Stephen Hawking in an anthology book of things that Einstein said. Obviously,
Oh, I love that, Craig. Good job.
Yeah.
Awesome,
He got
Craig.
it.
Nailed it.
Yeah, I didn't know that one.
The 2007 book is just
How emotionally invested this dude is.
an anthology that it's
No,
not.
he used that in my debate too, and I didn't know that at the time, but then when I looked it up, it's like, oh, this is just an anthology of Einstein papers. I mean, or letters.
It's
That doesn't change anything. I said every time I brought it up that he's citing Einstein. I say that every time. The point is that it's a stubbornly persistent illusion, explaining why it always is a stubbornly persistent illusion that the Earth is at the center, even though it's not. And he gives you a bunch of quotes from Einstein explaining his journey through acknowledging that.
His
not.
writings.
It's not. This is important. That is not Hawking reiterating what Einstein said.
He is
That-
citing him in the context of saying it's a stubbornly persistent illusion that we're central, dude.
It is just a copy paste of select works from Einstein.
Why'd he select those works with that title and with that forward? Oh, dun dun dun.
Nothing else. Witsit didn't
Yeah.
read it. He has no idea what's in that book.
Stop projecting.
The only thing he knows is the quote that somebody else gave him from that book, which is word for word.
No one gave me the quote. I went and looked him up. I haven't read the entire book. No, that's irrelevant. That doesn't matter.
What Einstein wrote. Witsit doesn't even know when Einstein wrote it or where and in what context he wrote it.
That's patently false.
And we'll see if
Which, of
we
course, if you look at the other one, I cover my debate with MC Toon where I explain that I literally do. No. So actually, the first time, just to correct what I said earlier, when we cover the FTFE thing, I do a specific debate review on that. And then when I go with the School and the Globers, I cover a little bit of this, but skip over to the other debate. So if you want to watch that, because it's a good way to learn about the best that they have, what they say. So the School and Globers episode 1 is actually not watching the FTFE debate. That's a separate show. I forgot where I cover. I call MC Toon out about this, but anyway, moving on.
get into that.
We'll get into
Never
that.
actually read it, even though he likes to cite that book a lot. I think that is all the nonsense that he brought up. I yield the rest of my time.
Look, you look at. They're so confident. He was wrong about everything he said. Isn't this weird? That's kind of weird. Moving on.
Nice.
Shane,
Yeah, because
did we lose
Yikes.
Shane?
Shane, you're muted.
All right. Let me FTFE and MC2. It came out weird. Playing all three lights in this contradicts your model.
he's demanding we want an experiment. He wants an experiment on Earth.
Well,
Yeah.
tell you what, Witsit.
Yeah.
How about you lead the way and Witsit, if you want to see a measurement of rotation from Earth that doesn't use stars and doesn't use fiber optic gyroscopes and doesn't use levitating
So he doesn't get. We're talking about orbit, and he brings up stuff talking about sidereal rotation.
spheres in a magnetic field and doesn't use pendulums on an independent gimbal.
And he goes on a big long list of literal non sequiturs because we're talking about orbit, not sidereal rotation.
doesn't use
Look at Brian. Look at Brian over here smiling. His daddy's talking. He's smiling. You don't. Hey, Mr. Professor. You don't realize that he's literally being fallacious and talking about something I'm not even talking about right now. Yikes.
rotating gyroscopes. All those things that you somehow won't accept. How
Has nothing to do with orbit.
about you lead the way, Austin, and first you show the measurement of stationariness
How do you measure stationariness? Oh, actually, I forgot I wanted to add another poll. Can I keep adding polls? I should be able to keep adding a poll, right? Yeah, start a poll. All right, there we go. We just posted a new poll. Is Bryant also intentionally being dishonest? We know MC Toon is, but do you think Bryant is being dishonest with how he represents what I say, with how he covers it, with what he says, with the weeks and weeks he goes on without concessions and pretending I said something I didn't say? Do you think it's innocent or do you think he's intentionally being dishonest? Because I'm just curious what you guys think. Moving on.
I
Using
haven't seen that yet.
whatever it is that you think is the measurement, the appropriate measurement of stationariness. You show that. Oh, no, wait. Witsit in the opening said, made the absolutely ridiculous claim that the default position is his position. Why is the default position your position, Witsit?
Because all empirical evidence shows us that the Earth is stationary. We don't have to account for the Earth moving to do anything. And your claim is, well, it always will appear like it's stationary, even though it's actually moving, just because it's a certain size with a certain angular rotation, so that we wouldn't know. Even though it's allegedly, of course, accelerating, then deaccelerating, and but it's just not enough for us to ever know. And so, yeah, all evidence shows that it's stationary. When we made a very precise measurement, over 10 times more precise than it needed to be to detect the alleged orbit, which is just under 20 miles a second, it was negative. It didn't detect the orbit. Since then, we have measurements over billions of times more sensitive that still didn't detect it. We will be covering this in depth in the next Schooling the Globers episode 3, where we will break this down. But yeah, so measurement of stationariness, you can't measure stationariness, right? Okay, if you're trying to measure motion and you want to measure stationariness, it would be zero. It would be negative. It would be nothing. Okay, you don't measure stationariness. You can measure something in motion coming to a stop and the change, right? You can get outside of it, move, and then see the Earth, see something else isn't moving. You don't measure stationariness. If you try to measure motion and you get zero or a negative result, that's a measurement of stationariness. It's very simple, and that's what we got. But we'll cover all this in the next episode specifically, but we don't have to listen to the painful nonsense of these people. I'm just using them as a teaching tool one last time. Moving on.
I can declare just as easily that the default position is my position.
But you're claiming antithetical to all empirical evidence, our senses, and our natural observations applying Occam's razor, that which apply or requires the least amount of assumption. Do you feel the Earth moving? No. Do we have to account for the Earth moving when we fly planes? No. When I throw a baseball, does the Earth move underneath it? No. When I fly a drone, does the Earth move underneath it? Well, it wouldn't. I understand all your arguments. I could be a better glober than most of you guys. I know you have an excuse for all of it. The point is, the default position is that the Earth is stationary topographical plane. We use this for military technology, for aircraft technology, for everything. Every time we try to measure any type of motion of the Earth moving through space, we get zero. We get negative results. That's the default position. That's right. If you're making a claim antithetical to observations, which is, well, that's just an illusion. It just appears like we're stationary. We can just treat it like it's stationary, even though it's actually tilted, wobbling, spinning, and revolving. Then you have to substantiate that. You have the burden of proof, making a claim antithetical to empirical evidence in the default position. Thanks for playing.
And I would have backing for that, because the standard entry into debate is that the person that is supporting the one that has the general consensus is the one that doesn't have the burden as strongly.
104 votes, and we're not looking too good for Brian. Come on, guys, you got this.
For my citation,
He's basically appealing to majority, and then he's citing some debate book
right here,
appealing to
Debater's
majority.
Guide.
Debater's Guide. If you go against the majority, you have the burden of proof, even though we actually have the burden of proof, fundamentally speaking, via logic as it applies and pertains to the subjects. No, good try. Moving on.
Guide. It goes over the process of Lincoln Douglas debates, and in a Lincoln Douglas debate, the person that is contrary to the status quo or the general consensus has a different position in the debate. They go first, and they have more burden. They have the burden to show that their position is different than the status quo.
That's what we do by showing the fact that all measurements show that blah, blah, blah. Then we say, okay, so if all measurements show this and all evidence shows us, all of our senses shows us this, and we can't detect the motion of the Earth in space, then that's what the default position is based on the evidence. So now you and this consensus is making a claim antithetical to that. We need substantial empirical verifiable evidence to verify the antithetical claim. Thanks for playing. Good try.
The person
This is his home run here.
on the status quo side doesn't have quite the same burden, because all of the status quo
You think Brian just an honest lost soul? I don't want to taint the poll, so I'm not going to give my opinion quite yet.
things get to be kind of rolled in automatically. I'm happy though, Austin, to the status quo. For you to say, Austin, that
There's so much
default-
more left.
I feel it's moving, so therefore,
you have to first
Attempt?
no.
like attempted evidence.
No,
No.
I mean the
They're in the-
motion is sensitive enough to feel the motion claimed.
But
But
not
you
even an attempt. Have you even had anyone attempt to like? to
I didn't make the argument that it's still because you can't feel it moving. I said you have the burden of proof to measure the motion of the Earth through space, which has never been done. And intricate measurements billions of times more insensitive than needed to be to detect that have always been negative, which is why you say space bends and warps and time slows down and matter physically contracts. So you could never measure it because they know, all physicists knew back then and still know to this day, except for the incompetent ones on the internet arguing flat Earth obsessively, right? Obsessing over this stupid college dropouts arguments, right? They know that it wasn't just saying, oh, well, it's just you can't feel it because of how fast it's moving. No, we have intricate interferometry measurements that should detect it. So we had to change all of physics. We had to invoke time dilation and length contraction, which is saying it's impossible to measure within that same frame of reference.
sort of show something that shows that the Earth is stationary, like
No,
like attempted
Yeah. Mickelson Morley. Thanks for playing.
evidence?
no,
No.
I mean they do try to sort of almost maybe, but not really try.
Boring.
Or well, there's no parallax, but of course that's pretty measurements.
Hey, first off, how you doing?
Do so then.
So I want to imply it's not. So could you please explain
No,
that it's the actual independent variable?
he is so they have to invent reasons and ways to get themselves out of the corners that they find themselves trapped in.
Mhm.
More sophistry,
If you don't,
which of course is the intentional use of fallacious arguments with the intention to deceive the audience.
And
can
so am
work.
I.
It's
And
supposed to
now
be-
you're just into
Now, the first time Witless
an experiment is the position on Earth, not
rotation of the Earth, then you can't experiment on the rotation of the Earth.
They
So this is all about the pendulum again. I covered this debate already. I want to get to where they get wrong because we're already 2 hours and 22 minutes in. I want to get to the relativity part. We still have a lot left. We're only 114 in there.
All of them, right? Just to do it. So a PO, a fake flat earther, forward sophist. Somebody do it. But now in flat earth Discord servers, they actually to Witsit. How is that actually? It's not, right?
What is he talking about?
Craig wasn't, in a true sense of sophistry, just arguing to argue.
Okay, this is where he's correcting my use of sophistry. He says, in the true sense of sophistry, just arguing to argue. That's not what the definition of sophistry is. Let's just pull it up, right? Like, my God. He's correcting my use of sophistry, saying that I was misusing it as just a new term that I say that I don't understand. And the true sense of sophistry is just arguing to argue. Okay, well, let's just, again, school the Globers here. That's not what it means. Sophistry. The use of fallacious arguments, especially with the intention of deceiving. Oh, you mean like verbatim how I've been defining it? Oh, what a shocker. What an absolute shocker.
So anyway, that's it's
Yeah.
a bit nebulous, but it's definitely not the true meaning of sophistry. But listen to Witsit when he
I just defined it, and you're pretending you're so profound and intelligent, you're teaching everyone, and you literally just said the wrong thing, and my definition is verbatim what the definition is. How funny is that?
the future here, because I'm sure he'll say it again. When he accuses Craig of being a sophist, consider what Craig did and see whatever that is what Witsit thinks is sophistry.
Which is, again, the use of fallacious arguments with the intention to deceive the audience. So every time you hear me say sophistry, go pay attention to what they just said, and it will always be that, hence why I said it.
We'll see.
So you're making a claim of exclusivity built upon a begging the question fallacy. Thanks for playing. Knowledge as principle is true. It is the principle that if something moves around,
Thing to say about
and DV in your experiment. For instance, the IV in
it's not there, isn't he?
Let's get to relativity because I got to school these guys.
Result, it was
of the equipment that they use.
observational. Ring.
Couldn't believe it. I missed it somehow. Earlier. Get
Hard
the time. Can you
himself.
get the timestamp on that one? That little quote he just said. 'Cause
Oh
I
yeah,
wanna-
yeah. That's would have to
Can
be
you
so
get the
right? And I'm just a loser.
hard. All right. Well, thank you.
And then he takes me like being sarcastic, like, oh, I'm just some loser, and he takes the clip out of there and plays it. Like he's so weird. Like I don't know. That's why I ignored him for 3 years, and I won't be covering him a lot. Like he probably likes this, right? But it's just weird. 377.
Would have to be
Can you
so
get the
hard
time? Can you
himself.
get the timestamp on that one? That little quote he just said. 'Cause
Oh
I
yeah,
wanna-
yeah. That's 5253.
Oh, good.
Look, he's writing
you're
it
gonna have to
down.
send
Like think about this. Think about like being a professor in physics and an engineer, talking about how stupid flat Earth is. It's so easy. It's a layup. You can easily debunk it. And then sitting around a computer watching my debate, being like, "Wait, what did he say? Can you write that down? What did he say? What did he say?" It's a back scratcher. What? Can you get the timestamp? What quote did he just say? Like, are you kidding me? Do you guys want to know what quote I had just said? I'll show you.
Me that. What the hell?
I'm gonna write that one down. That's
Specifically different things. I can give you hundreds of citations for that. The hypothesis
if you-
is not the prediction. They are separate things.
If you say if this then that, this causes that, and you're predicting that that is the cause of that, which means if you manipulate the cause, of course, science is qualitative, not quantitative, right? So if your prediction is
wait. What?
Whoa.
I missed that one.
He said
Science
science
is
is
qualitative.
qualitative, not quantitative.
They're
It's
so
both.
Whoa.
It's both. Wits.
No, it's not. Science establishes a cause and effect relationship. The quality of a cause and effect relationship test, you can further quantify it to replicate it with more precision after that. Duh.
Well, that's.
What the hell?
I'm gonna write that one
Science explains, math describes. Fundamentally different.
down. That's pretty.
We're going to
Holy
finally get to relativity.
crap.
It's taking forever.
I want to get that snippet on a little YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
you're terrified of this, so you
So unless you're going to go back 150, here's a hypothesis. Observational.
actually, and you want to leave that part out, but of course, it was
Here, isn't he?
Mhm.
After Michelson-Morley came out.
Here we go.
did
Here we
travel
go.
further. The apparatus shrank, so it looks like
This
it's
is
the
where
same.
he thinks he's going to school everyone on relativity. It's hilarious.
And even though it did take longer to go further, time slowed down.
Okay. He's mixing here, isn't he?
Mhm.
So he's for reference. So Michelson-Morley.
I
After
will let you guys
Michelson-Morley
let me hear what I'm saying, I guess.
stuff. So unless you're going to go back
all the
any, which is acting observational stuff, nothing ever matches this.
Right? So if your prediction is quantitative, right, that's an Michelson-Morley, which I know you're
Michelson,
terrified
I
of.
don't have any.
Relationship test. So agree to disagree, right? Now we can talk about your misunderstanding of Michelson-Morley, which I know you're terrified
I
of.
don't have any misunderstanding.
You're terrified of this. So you claim that it debunked the ether, right? Which is just so
Absolutely.
laughable.
Yeah, that was the entire point of the experiment. The results said that basically there was no fringe shift detected. There was no aether wind as predicted. The only thing that they registered was within the margin of error of the equipment that they used. So yeah, it debunked the aether.
No, actually, what Michelson said was that the conclusions
Oh,
yeah.
he's going to cherry pick.
exclude
I'm
the
going to cherry pick. Again, next week we will be covering relativity and Michelson-Morley in a Schooling the Globers episode 3. Always improving. Thank you for the 499 super chat. You are machine, Austin. What do you think about the tech cap that hiding a flat Earth would entail? No flying cars, etc., because proof would be even easier. I think that that's just an alternative motive they have anyway, right? Like they want to keep us technologically limited for obvious reasons. For example, like the efficient use of helium to fly, right? Like with balloons, or like ancient civilizations claiming you could use mercury to make flying machines, like thousands of years ago, claiming that, and in ancient Indian texts, like literally from India. And of course, now we know that ammonia, water, and mercury will give you a very efficient combustion. Electrogravitic propulsion, ether physics applied with the Nazis in the early 30s, making flying machines where they reverse engineered ancient technology. All kinds of stuff like this. They just don't want us to have it for obvious reasons. They don't want us to know there's an ether, that everything's intrinsically electrostatic and intrinsically electric and has a vibrational resonance interconnected. for many reasons. It would just free us up in general. So they just feed off of each other. It's not like they're like, oh, we want to lie about the earth, so we have to lie about technology. They don't want you to have technology anyway. But thank you for the super chat.
Idea of a stationary ether. Okay, but this is the action, and you want to leave that part up. But of course, it was an attempt to detect the motion
It literally says it. We'll cover it again next week, but it says stationary ether. We'll cover all that next week.
of the Earth through the ether. So then there was a predicted value as to what would be seen. And of course, that was not observed. Now, Einstein explains that he came up with special relativity in response to Michelson-Morley to explain the results. And then that's what led him to eventually claim that time slowed down and physically expanded and dilated, slowed down, and that the measuring apparatus contracted. Okay, so that's why he came up with that, was to explain why, even though the one path that the light, quote unquote, traveled was longer and therefore it was a greater distance, so it took longer to travel that greater distance because it's going against the motion of the Earth. It didn't show that, so it's because actually, even though it did travel further, the apparatus shrank, so it looks like it's the same. And even though it did take longer to go further, time slowed down.
Okay, he's mixing here, isn't he? So he's, for reference.
Watch how confident or lack thereof Brian is when he says, watch it. Pay attention to Brian.
So it looks like it's the same. And even though it did take longer to go further, time slowed.
Brian knows he doesn't know, and he's like waiting on. He's like looking to McToon, like, please help me, save me, tell me why Austin's wrong, and I'll watch it.
Okay, he's mixing here, isn't he? So he's, for reference. So, Michelson-Morley. After Michelson-Morley came out, it was groundbreaking. People didn't expect that result. It was the null result. It was failed experiment. They didn't measure. They didn't measure what they thought they were going to measure. So people are like, what do we do? And they proposed a bunch of different things, which is what you do in science. Perfectly valid. So Lorentz proposed that the apparatus was physically shrinking because of the ether. That was his proposal. And the quantity of the shrinkage, he came up with his Lorentz formula, right? Which is
the Lorentz.
One minus square root
One
of
minus b.
You remember him making fun of me earlier about the equation?
He came up with his Lorentz formula, right? Which is
the Lorentz.
one minus square root
One
of
minus b.
what?
Well, it's L naught times the square root of 1 minus v squared over c squared. And that's the Lorentz factor. That gamma is the Lorentz factor that's in all the. And so it wasn't Michelson. It was actually Lorentz that said that. Michelson, they weren't talking about.
I never said Michelson said it. I never said that. I know more about it than you.
And so it wasn't Michelson. It was actually Lorentz that said that. Michelson, they weren't talking about any contraction of apparatuses. That was all.
Never said he was.
Lorentz after the fact, trying to figure it out.
And Lorentz claimed that the apparatus shrunk, keeping ether. That was his attempt to keep ether, right? To explain it within the realm of ether still existing.
Which would have meant that molecular forces would have had to change. That was a big part of that problem, right? Because everything's physically shrinking. And so that has to, anyway, that's.
The reason why it physically shrank is because the ether like pressed it, right?
Well, so this is what I just,
Right. So
this is what I just, go ahead.
All right, let's say, so you have the arm, let's say the arm of the thing, right? So here's the classic Michelson-Morley. It actually had multiple mirrors. It wasn't really that long. Let's just take one of the arms. Let's say that this.
As to the poll, is Bryant also intentionally being dishonest? 87% yes, 183 votes. Okay. Yeah, of course he is. He's proven himself to be intellectually dishonest.
Arm is going towards the ether flow, right? This way towards the camera. And so the light going this way would get slowed down while it went that way because it was fighting against the ether.
What's funny, he's like, the contraction was for Lorentz with the ether. Yeah, Lorentz's ether theory. Yeah. Einstein took the same contraction, dude.
Right. So then, but they didn't find this. And so they said, oh, that's because the length of this arm shrunk by that certain amount that we were.
What's super funny is you still have ballers in here defending them when they're just so objectively wrong and ignorant on this entire thing. It's about to get so bad So don't block that dude. Let him stay in here while he insults me and watch how stupid he's gonna look. He doesn't care though. This is the problem with ballers. They don't care because they're losers and they hide behind anonymity on the internet. So you can insult people, talk crazy, bring up their wives, bring up their lives, call them all kinds of names because they can hide behind their keyboard and anonymity. So I think that the move is to just kind of know what they are, or like take them for what they are, and like just understand that they're like not really worth a ton of energy, and kind of use them to show other people like what you don't want to be a part of, right?
That made it possible. And Lorentz got the correct amount that it had to shrink if the aether existed, right? The formula that he came up with was the right formula. It came out later to be completely correct. But it didn't work. That was with aether. And Witsit thinks that was actually the relativity explanation.
What was the Kennedy Thorndike experiment that they used different sized arms that totally debunked? So Witsit's using a failed ether model. And that's what I just realized tonight. It's like, oh, what he's saying is that, which is true, is that Lorentz took the fringe patterns that they were expecting, and then he used the contraction to get rid of.
Think about how lost he is. He says, oh, and so Witsit's using a failed ether model. And that's what I realized tonight. I was like, oh, I'm not using the model. Brian, you're so lost. The only reason Lorentz had to propose that model was to try to keep the ether with the motion of the earth because they didn't get what they expected. I don't believe the earth is flying through space, but undetectably. I don't need the apparatus to contract. I'm not insane. I don't claim the apparatus contracts, but you could never tell. I don't claim that. I don't need that model because I think the earth is stationary. So when you say, I finally figured it out, conceding that for weeks now you've been trying to figure it out and you still don't understand my actual position, but then you claim I'm stupid and I don't understand. You just admitted that you're trying to figure out what I think because you don't understand it. You then go on to say, oh, I get it now. He believes in the Lorentz ether theory. No, I don't believe in contraction. I don't believe the apparatus shrink. I don't believe the earth orbits. You're lost, bruh. It's pathetic.
Them, which is what the experiment showed, right? So so basically he's kind of getting this whole arm to contract by the same amount that they were expecting the fringe shift based on the movements. So he's kind of going backwards, but he ends up getting the same formula that Einstein got, which is kind of part of the confusion. I mean, the same factor, the lens factor, right?
It's part of the confusion that Witsit no, you're confused. He doesn't go backwards and then get the same formula Einstein got. Einstein took his formula from him, who took it from Heaviside, who took it from someone else. You should do some research, Mr. Professor.
The same factor. But instead of
Lorentz's, it's Lorentz's work to try to explain it within the realm of ether was fantastic work, because even though the ether still didn't explain it, that contraction was correct within relativity. And
so he says that contraction was correct during within relativity. So you're saying that it does say that it's a contraction due to relativity, but he's saying no, it's just, I don't know why, it's just in relativity also he just happens to get the same math Einstein did. Einstein took it from Lorentz. He writes about how he took it from Lorentz. He took relativity in general from Poincaré. Okay, Lorentz proposed this Lorentzian ether theory to show the contraction, right, to keep the ether from Michelson-Morley. Einstein took it from him. Lorentz took it from Heaviside, who also gives credit to someone else who came up with it a year before Einstein proposed it in 87. And he proposed in 88, a year after Michelson-Morley. So, and I think I got all my dates right? So it's like Einstein didn't just happen to come up with it. He didn't come up with it and it just happened to match this other one. He took it from him, admittedly so, bro.
So Einstein...
But it ends up being moving relative observers instead of the actual thing physically contracting. So nothing's contracting within our frame physically, right? So this is what Witsit doesn't get this, and he thinks that the things should be, and you'll see Craig kind of, it's a little kind of difficult to follow what Witsit's trying to say. So
right, so he said nothing's contracting in our frame physically, and Witsit doesn't get this. Now we're gonna bury that. Okay, this is the part of the show that we get to school the Globers. He's still saying this. He just said it in my email before the show. He's still saying it, right? Okay, so let's correct all of this so we can teach the Globers. This is School and the Globers. Present. We'll come over here. We'll pull up Einstein. Okay, once again, here you go. It says, maybe we can make it a little bigger. Zoom in. Okay. Wow, that's huge. All right. So again, we come up here and it says, the second class of facts to which we have alluded has reference to the question whether or not the motion of the Earth can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments. We've already remarked in section 5 that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result. Before the theory of relativity was put forward, it was difficult to become reconciled to this negative result for reasons to now be discussed. Okay, so what did relativity do to reconcile the negative result? Well, we're about to discuss the reasons that that's the case, huh? Okay. And then it says the inherited prejudice about time and space. So he changed the interpretation of time and space. So we're going to move down here. And he's saying, in one of the most notable of these attempts, speaking of attempting to detect the ether, Michelson devised a method which appears as though it must be decisive. Imagine two mirrors so arranged on a rigid body that reflecting surfaces face each other. He describes the Michelson-Morley experiment, right? Then we come down here, and it says that the time is different when the body is moving perpendicularly to the planes of the mirrors. Now, not just in the sense of the ether, but it's so right here. And yet another point, it is shown by calculation that for a given velocity with reference to the ether, that time is different when the body is moving perpendicularly to the planes of the mirrors from that resulting when the motion is parallel to these planes. Although the estimated difference between these two times is exceedingly small, which will obviously have to come back to this because Brian kept saying 1/5000th the width of a human hair. Yeah, that's exceedingly small, right? Okay. Michelson and Morley performed an experiment involving interference in which this difference should have been clearly detectable. So even though it is exceedingly small, they created interference tests that should make it clearly detectable. But the experiment gave a negative result, a fact very perplexing to physicists. Okay, so then Lorentz comes in to save the day. Lorentz and Fitzgerald rescued the theory from this difficulty, right? The difficulty that it was supposed to be able to detect it, even though it's exceedingly small. They used interference. It should have been clearly detectable, but they got a negative result. This is the difficulty, okay? And so they came in and rescued the theory from this difficulty by assuming that the motion of the body relative to the ether produces a contraction of the body in the direction of motion, right? So they understand that part. That's right. The amount of contraction being just sufficient to compensate for the difference in the time mentioned above. Okay, so being just sufficient, meaning just the right amount, just sufficient to compensate for the difference in time mentioned right above. What was the time mentioned right above? Although the estimated difference between these two times is exceedingly small. Okay, so it is very small, but they say they came up with a contraction of the body in the direction of motion where the amount of contraction would be just sufficient to compensate for the difference in the time mentioned above, which is exceedingly small. Comparison with this discussion in section 12 shows that from the standpoint also of the theory of relativity, this solution of the difficulty was the right one. But on the basis of the theory of relativity, the method of interpretation is incomparably more satisfactory. Okay, now when we come down here, as he further explains it, thus for a coordinate system moving with the Earth, the mirror system of Michelson-Morley is not shortened, but it is shortened for a coordinate system which is at rest relatively to the sun. So this is what he's talking about. He's like, oh, well, when you're in the same reference frame, it doesn't contract. Now, this is the point. It doesn't contract relative to its surrounding because everything contracts in the motion of the Earth. If there's a physical contraction of space, the person within that space and all matter within that space moving in the direction of motion with the Earth, everything slightly, barely contracts. But since everything, including your measuring apparatus, the space itself, if you're going to measure a distance with a ruler and then you go to measure the distance and the space you're measuring contracts, but your ruler also contracts, you won't be able to measure how much space contracted, will you? Okay. It's because everything is also contracting that it doesn't shorten for you in that reference frame relative to your surroundings in that reference frame. Very simple. He's saying that it's not physical. Okay. So now we're going to show the next part that the ballers need to know. So basically what the ballers are doing is making up the idea that it doesn't actually shorten because they hate to have to acknowledge, because it sounds so insane to claim that the apparatus physically shortened. They hate that. They say it didn't physically shorten. It didn't physically shorten. Witsit just doesn't get that, right? So let's see if it physically shortened. Okay, here is a dude named Vladimir Verakok. I don't know how to actually say his name. So it says here, he says, however, if one employs Einstein's standpoint, let me make this bigger. This is important for the Globus. And honestly for flat earthers too. Okay. However, if one employs Einstein's standpoint, according to whom the mentioned contraction is only an apparent subjective phenomenon caused by the manner of our clock regulation and length measurement, this contraction does not appear to be justified. Okay, so this is this guy writing about Einstein's standpoint. He says, in which the mentioned contraction is only apparent and subjective phenomenon. Okay, just apparent. All right, meaning it's just a visual effect. It's not physical. Like, oh, look, man, it looks like Bryant's right. It's just apparent. It isn't physical. It's not physically contracting. It's wrong? Bryant's right. Okay, so that according to that guy, right? Okay. Let's move on. Let's see what Einstein had to say in rebuttal to that. So as a rebuttal to that, Einstein says, recently, Vladimir Verakok published in his journal some comments that should not go unanswered because they may cause confusion. You keep talking about confusion, Brian. You're the one confused, and he knew it would cause confusion for people like you, so pay attention, okay? Recently, Vladimir published in this journal some comments that should not go unanswered because they may cause confusion. The author unjustifiably perceived a difference between Lorentz conception and mine with regard to the physical facts. The question of whether the Lorentz contraction does or does not exist in reality is misleading. It does not exist in reality, and as much as it does not exist for a moving observer, but it does exist in reality, i.e., in such a way that in principle it could be detected by physical means for a non-co-moving observer. Okay, so that means that you do not see it. It doesn't contract for you in the frame of reference, right? Because you're in that frame of reference that's moving with it. So you do not see the shortening. You don't experience it. It doesn't shorten for you because everything shortens together. There is no shortening, meaning that you have one distance and then you have a shorter distance. That's what shortening means. You don't have a shortening. You don't experience a shortening. Everything in that reference frame is shortened in the direction of motion, okay? But it does physically shorten. It physically shortens for you would be able to measure the shortening if you were outside the reference frame, okay? So if we're talking about what happens in reality, if we do an experiment and we're like, this doesn't measure the amount we need, why does it not? Then in order for relativity to explain Michelson-Morley, like we just covered in Einstein's relativity special and general theory, right? He explains that it was the right solution to say the apparatus contracted, but the interpretation is different. The interpretation being that Lorentz and Maxwell and all these people said there were absolute frames of reference and there was an ether, which means you'd be able to test whether or not that arm physically shrank. Okay. Well, here he's explaining that the difference is we're saying you'll never be able to tell from the same reference frame because it doesn't shorten for you, meaning that observer moving with it can't detect it, can't measure it because everything contracts. It doesn't shorten for you, as in it doesn't shorten for you relative to the surrounding area because everything shortens in the direction of motion. But it has to physically contract and shorten in that direction of motion to explain the lack of fringe shift. Okay, I'm glad that I could cover that for you, Brian. I'm sure that you'll still say somehow that it's me that doesn't understand. Moving on.
Just want to kind of set that up for when
All right.
Craig has a little. Go ahead.
Down to make it look like it didn't take longer. And that is to this day the very belief you have to hold to believe the Earth is a spinning ball using relativity.
Right, okay, you notice how I let you talk for a long time there and didn't cry about it. But yeah, so no, that's not actually what Einstein said. I would need the direct citation from you. When Einstein's talking about length contraction, he specifically, can do the maths and everything as well. So if we're talking about the length contraction of the equipment that was used, you know how long the arms were, the Michelson-Morley equipment? Do you know how many meters they were?
I don't care.
Well, you should, because it's kind of important to your entire point,
I don't
Witsit. That's the
care.
thing. They're 11
Literally
meters
not.
long. Do you know the equation for length contraction, Witsit?
Instead of you detracting, we respond to the actual point that you have to believe that's time. Yeah, you got gotcha.
This is so funny because Brian gets off on the fact that I misremember the equation, like because I wasn't talking about the factor, and because before the factor, then it is c squared times v squared. But watch what they say here. This is hilarious. They still won't publicly admit that they were wrong. They're making posts about how they're about to bury me.
The equation.
Pretending you're some like
You
mathematical
watched me
genius.
read the equation off. I literally
Yeah, I
just said
watched
it.
you.
Look, rho, which is the original length of the
Oh, he's not looking down.
thing,
Look at
times
him.
the square root of
He's looking down. He
1
said, "Look, I'll look up," and then he looks right back down. Watch. He says, "I'm looking up. I'll look up."
Irrelevant.
Okay, what's the equation for length contraction?
It's
not-
irrelevant.
Just look down at it. He said, "What's the equation for length contraction?" And then he looks down at the. I mean, this is
Length
petty, but
contraction, Witsit.
look.
Yeah, and that's
Dancing around. So, do you know?
Boom. He's looking at it. He doesn't. He's
Just asking, do you
reminding
know the
himself
equa-
live of what it is, trying to remember it, and then he's going to
equation
get a
for length
gotcha
contraction, Witsit.
off the top of my head.
yeah, and
on
that's
Discord.
irrelevant.
Okay, what's the equation for length contraction?
It's
not
irrelevant to the
It's not
actual
relevant.
point.
It's like
Oh my gosh. Put him in a corner.
Hey, as soon as you
And
address
he's excited about it as he had to read it on the paper, and he told him how to do the math right before the debate because he didn't know.
my
What a
actual
joke.
pretending you're some like
you
mathematical
watched me
genius.
read the equation off.
Did we not all just watch him read it off? He looks down at the equation, and then in a second, he pulls the paper out and shows that he was looking down at it. It's so funny.
Yeah, I
You
watched
said it.
you.
Look,
I
watching right
watched
now. I'm not looking at anything, right? The equation is L,
Watch him.
which is the length contraction, equals LO, which is the original length of the thing, times the square root of 1 minus V squared, which is the V is the velocity of the object,
Yeah.
over C squared, which is the speed of light. I didn't
Wrong.
read that off of anything. I studied
wrong.
that earlier and paid attention.
And you just looked at it just a second ago. You looked down at it. Okay, it doesn't matter, but anyway, it's just the line.
V squared over C squared, yeah.
What's the time?
No,
what's
I
the
don't think so.
timestamp on that?
Oh,
What's the
oh my
timestamp?
gosh.
Pretty sure it's v squared times c squared.
All right. 56:43. For reference, people, Craig got it right.
Do you
Craig
know
got it right.
the
What's
equation
it-
for length contraction, was it?
That's
Instead of you
that's
detracting,
their
we
home
respond to the
run.
actual
I'm not,
point that you
I
have
am,
to
this
believe.
is square root of 1 minus,
Just
which
said
bit did I
v
say
squared
wrong?
over c squared?
V squared over C squared, yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, V squared over C squared.
It's v squared times c squared before the factor.
Pretty sure.
You know the early link contraction? Irony is,
He didn't double down on it.
you know the irony. The irony is during Flattoberfest, this whole big graphic on the Michelson-Morley link contraction.
It was
like
up there.
his big show. It was big. It was a showstopper. He said, "This is more important, everybody, than everything I've talked about." And he doesn't know the equation of what that governs that contraction.
Look how much he's laughing, and he's about to embarrass himself so bad. It's hilarious. He's like, he doesn't know the equation, and like, dude, you knew the equation and did the math, and still didn't understand it, and were completely wrong. It's so funny. Why are you so arrogant? Josh Scandalin, thank you for the $20 super chat, brother. Much love. Let me check Rockfin. I would like to invite you to a conference April 28th through 30th by a Flat Earth pastor, Brian Bible Church in Virginia Beach. I'm willing to pay for some of it. Okay, cool. Thank you, James Patterson, for the $10 tip on Rockfin. Email me at witsitgetsit@gmail.com and put that in the subject so I'll know. All right, moving on.
He's never done math. You
It's
can't do
qualitative.
math.
Wow.
Cool, you know the equation.
Now
You know the
is
equation.
my point. Now is where I can actually get to where I was going with this. So
You're not gonna
now
address
that we
the
know
point.
what the equation is, if we plug in the numbers for how fast the Earth is moving and the original length of the equipment, then what we actually find is the length contraction would only be 55 nanometers, which is 1/1000th the width of a human hair. That is not going to change the result with the magnitude that you require it to of. That's practically imperceivable. So no, your argument about length contraction.
Oh, my boy Gleam always drops the most fire quotes. He's like a freaking encyclopedia, man. He said, to paraphrase Walter Lewin, out of the 90 plus important equations in physics, I can probably name 4 to 5 offhand. You do not need to remember them offhand. And of course, Brian doesn't know it offhand. He didn't even know it until right before the debate. He did the math and then gave it to FTFE, who wrote it down. And then they're like, gotcha. And then MC Toon didn't remember the equation twice in this very coverage where he's making fun of me. He got it wrong both times. I would never say, haha, you don't remember the equation off the top of your head. That's stupid. Just like Walter Lewin said. I can only remember like 4 to 5 of them off the top of my head. Of course, right? I'm in the middle of a debate on Discord, and he's like, do you even know the equation off the top of your head? Haha, you're stupid. That's how desperate they are to try to get a gotcha on me, which goes to show you they know they can't debate me because that's not proving anything. That's not proving I'm stupid. I've never tried to memorize that equation, nor do I need to. But anyway, this is the funny part.
Causing the result is wrong because the math of length contraction disagrees with you.
Okay, now this is objective, and I encourage. Now, what you'll say?
Okay, so he said this is objective. if you do the math of 11 meters of the arms, it's 1/5000th the width of a human hair. That's not enough to give you what you need for Michelson-Morley, right? And now watch, I call him out, and watch what happens.
Because the math of length contraction disagrees with you.
Okay, now this is objective, and I encourage. Now, what you'll see is FTFE will just deny it. So I'm not trying to.
Here's a hint, people. Whenever Witsit says objective, literally, and there's another one, he's about to lie or get something wrong.
Wake up the zealots that you modded the most toxic people I've ever seen in my entire life in your chat. I'm trying to wake up the audience, okay? In case you don't know, you just go research it. You won't get the truth from FTA. This is objective. That Einstein said that the reason we did not get the predicted value is because there's supposed to be a phase shift. The light is supposed to be behind the other light. We didn't see that. So he claimed that the measuring apparatus physically contracted and time slowed down.
That was Lorentz.
That was Lorentz, not
Now, did we not just all read that Einstein said that, we'll read it again real fast. It says, Lorentz rescued the theory from this difficulty by assuming that the motion of the body relative to the ether produces a contraction of the body in the direction of motion, the amount of contraction being just sufficient to compensate for the difference in time mentioned above. Then it says, comparison with the discussion in section 12 shows that from the standpoint also of the theory of relativity, this solution to the difficulty was the right one. Okay. Then we just now read Einstein correcting this other author, saying the author unjustifiably perceived a difference between Lorentz's conception and mine with regard to the physical facts. And then he says it could be detected by physical means. He says that it is physical. The other guy says it's just abstract. It's just apparent and subjective. He says, no, unjustifiable comment. In my theory, it is physical and it could be measured with physical means. And that it's also from the standard of the viewpoint of relativity. How many times do I have to say it before they stop saying this, do you think? You want to bet? You want to ask a poll on that? Because the answer would be forever. They'll never admit they were wrong.
Einstein.
He just gets it all wrong.
And this is objective, Austin.
It literally is objective, right? Does everyone see how funny this is? And this is objective. He just gets it all wrong. And they're so wrong right here, bro. So this is for the Globers. We're schooling the Globers, just so you know. You don't want to be on their side, bro. It's bad. It's very ignorant. And their whole argument is 1/5000th the width of a hair. That's not enough. That's so small. That wouldn't help you out. Well, that's why Einstein says, although the estimated difference between these two times is exceedingly small, Michelson and Morley performed an experiment involving interference, which this difference should have been clearly detectable. The experiment gave a negative result. So then it says that they rescued the theory from the difficulty by assuming the motion of the body relative to the ether produces a contraction of the body in the direction of motion, which is what relativity says. Matter contracts and shortens in the direction of motion. Same exact thing. The amount of contraction being just sufficient to compensate for the difference in time, which he says is exceedingly small, which is why it's 1/5000th the width of a human hair. Yeah, it's exceedingly small. So they just did the math, saw it was really small, and they're like, there's no way that can be it, because they don't know their own belief system. Moving on.
It wasn't within relativity that the length contracted. It was within aether that the length contracted.
He's acting like he's teaching me and I'm stupid. It was within the ether, right? I'm just sorry to be reiterative. I'm making sure no one can squirm out of this. It wasn't within relativity that the length contracted. It was within the ether. Here he literally says, right? Comparison with the discussion in section 12 shows that from the standpoint also of the theory of relativity, this solution of the difficulty was the right one. And the solution of the difficulty was they rescued the theory from this difficulty by saying that there was a contraction in the direction of motion, just a sufficient amount to compensate for the difference in time. Thanks for playing.
Mm-hmm.
This is objective. Whenever
It literally is.
whenever Witsit says this is objective, he's about to be wrong.
Projection.
Any attempt to use measuring rods or clocks to detect the motion of the Earth around the sun is a futile pursuit because of this illusion that takes place. So would you like to admit that relativity claims you cannot prove the Earth is moving around the Earth from the Earth because time slows down and matter contracts?
No, absolutely not, because the amount that time slows down and matter contracts is practically imperceivable. So much so that the equations, when you use relativistic speeds versus non-relativistic equations, actually give the same result. So no, relativity doesn't say that. And in fact, you can
Exceedingly small, just a sufficient amount to compensate for the fact that it's exceedingly small. Bro, just read the paper. I gave it to all you guys weeks ago. Why you guys lying?
specifically measure
Weird.
the orbit of the Earth around the sun using relativistic.
They're like, that line so much, like it's weird, right? Like, don't make this weird, bro. Hey, brother, recently found your channel via KC Industry. Hey, shout out to my boy Caleb. Great content. I'm kind of retarded. Do you have any resources to explain FE to boomer normies? Nothing too technical for them, real world. Yeah, probably. I'm sure someone in the chat can answer your super chat pretty good. Will you guys in the chat come up with drop some stuff you think he should check out that would fit that description? You can also get the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. Dave should pay me just for memorizing his freaking app name, which is like I'm out of breath just trying to say it. But it has a bunch of stuff. It answers a bunch of questions in a bunch of different ways. And thank you for the $10 super chat and the compliment, brother. Much love.
Doppler measurements. And I specifically got the paper for that earlier, so I can actually pass you that paper to have a look at, showing that the orbit around the sun matches what we say it to. It is actually the Earth moving and nothing else, based on.
He never gave me that paper because he didn't actually have it. He just boldly lied. And weeks later, he still didn't have it. They just lie. And then MC Toon didn't have it. And he was actually asked a week before this to get it. Said he was going to bring it. And he says, "Oh, I can't find it at the end of it." They just lie a lot, and then project lying onto me.
Spectroscopy and Doppler measurements of distant things. So you can use relativity to show that the Earth is orbiting around the sun. What you cannot use, which is what Einstein was talking about, is the Michelson-Morley experiment, the results of the Michelson-Morley experiment, or any experiment like the Michelson-Morley experiment. That is the only thing that Einstein was talking about. He never spoke about anything else. And when he said that, it was 10 to 15 years before the Michelson-Gale-Pierce experiment, which verified a lot of things from the Michelson-Morley experiment. So no,
he literally goes in detail explaining that afterwards, bro. What is wrong with you guys? In Evolution in Physics 1938, he goes further on to explain it. We're going to cover it next week in Schooling the Globers, episode 3. Okay. Today's Wednesday, right? So we'll do it every Wednesday. We'll try and do Schooling the Globers every Wednesday night around 7 p.m. Eastern, if that's cool with everyone. And we'll cover it. But it's just sad. We're moving on because it's already been 3 hours.
You are completely wrong.
Wow. That goes to show you literally don't understand anything, because Michelson-Gale-Pearson is about sidereal rotation. It literally has nothing to do with Michelson-Morley trying to detect the orbit. Secondly, he's giving...
Michelson-Morley wasn't trying to detect the orbit.
They were literally trying to detect a fringe shift based on the assumption that the Earth is moving around the sun in orbit. And we'll actually cover this next week, but it was actually about determining if the velocity of light was constant in all directions per a letter from Edward Morley.
A speech talking about what
I know a lot of people are kind of like Michelson-Morley and relativity doubt. That's why I'm going to cover it in depth next week in Schooling the Globers, episode 3. And then you guys will hear me occasionally bring it up in debates and stuff, but we'll move on to other points as we progress from there. But I do want to like really make it where people understand it. I want to make sure I do, get all the stuff compiled that I've read over the years, and make sure you guys get every aspect of it, because you got to go find all the nonsense they claim. You got to go sift through all Einstein's writings, sift through all kinds of stuff, and find exactly why they're wrong, compile it. I'm going to put it all on the show. I'm going to make a video eventually that's like under 10 minutes, hopefully like 5 minutes, explaining Michelson-Morley and what it did. Very good graphics, nice narration. I might get Kai to narrate it because obviously her voice is much more pleasing than mine. And you guys can share that to new people so that they can learn. Moving on.
Come up with special relativity. And he says Michelson-Morley in 87 is what started it, right? And then he came up with special relativity, which was like 18 years later or whatever, right? And so he came up with the idea that that matter contracts. He actually came up with it. Lorentz did. He stole it and threw out the ether. Then he said time.
Oh my gosh.
So I messed up there. It's like I said, he actually didn't come up with it. Lorentz said, then he stole it and threw out the ether. Well, actually, Lorentz didn't come up with it, right? Lorentz got it from Heaviside, who got it from someone else. But I'll cover all that because I want to make sure I get all that correct. But Einstein didn't come up with it. He did take it from Lorentz, who took it from someone else, the math at least. And then the concept of it being applied to Michelson-Morley was accredited to Lorentz. And then, of course, you have these crazy people believing Einstein did it for whatever reason. Moving on.
Einstein didn't claim length contraction. Lorentz claimed length contraction. My gosh.
Ben. Now that's one quote where he says no optical experiment can detect the motion of the Earth around the sun. And he has another quote explaining that to the question whether or not.
So when he says no optical experiment can detect the motion of the Earth around the sun, very specifically, Einstein is referring to one experiment. If you read that in context, he's talking about Michelson-Morley. Just Michelson-Morley. And he's certainly not talking about Foucault pendulum.
We're not talking about Foucault pendulum, and he's not just talking about Michelson-Morley. We just now read it once again. I'll put it on the screen. My goodness, it says that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result. And then he says right here at the so this is the terrestrial experiment, which is what we're talking about in the debate right there. All attempts of this nature. Then he says here once again that it was the first path that led me to relativity. Since then, I've come to the conclusion, I've come to believe that the motion of the Earth cannot be detected by any optical experiment. Basic reading comprehension. You have to lie.
in
to
space can be
change
made
it.
perceptible in terrestrial experiments. We have already remarked that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result, all of them. And before the theory of relativity was put forward, it was difficult to become reconciled to this negative result. So if you understand that, what was it about relativity that reconciled the negative results?
It allowed them to remove the aether and have relativistic calculations able to explain things. That was it.
No,
Which the relativist calculations that explain things was with Lorentz contraction.
it's literally not the answer. See if you can try again. It's
you
not
also
that they
kind of
removed.
strawmanned me a little bit when you were talking there. I didn't say that the Maxon-Gale and the Maxon-Morley experiment were the same. I said some things from the Maxon-Gale-Pearson experiment verified some of the things from the Maxon-Morley experiment. And that was years after.
About relativity specifically that allowed them to become reconciled with the negative result of all terrestrial experiments that attempted to detect the motion of the Earth around the sun.
Well, it's the fact that relativity gives us the position of not knowing if it's us or something else moving from a reference frame point of view. That's
Why?
it.
Why?
Because you need other things to be able to determine that. That's it. That's
what-
why we
no.
use other things
Other
as well. We
things?
don't just use relativity,
Other
but we can actually
things.
use relativistic effects to still measure the orbit of the Earth around the sun.
You just
Yeah.
say use other things.
Yes, we can use other things as well as relativity. We don't just
No,
have
so
to
you
use
don't understand
relativity.
it. You
Relativity has to apply everywhere there is mass if it is accurate. Duh.
really don't understand it. So the
Other things like a Foucault pendulum.
Then he goes on to again, we're talking about orbits, and he says other things like Foucault's pendulum, which is allegedly measuring the rotation, sidereal rotation. Think about how incompetent they are, bro. That's why I'm burying them this one time. We're moving on and elevating.
That's what
It sucks.
other
I have to
things
talk so much because they're wrong every time they say something.
he's talking about, or a suspended plastic sphere, or superfluid helium in a circle or in a toroid.
Like we're talking about the orbital motion assumed. Look how arrogant he is.
Other,
and many others.
yeah,
And many others, it's called a red herring fallacy. That which gives the illusion to be relevant to the conversation, but is actually an attempt to divert away, right? Because you're talking about sidereal rotations at orbit. But again, do not attribute malice to that which can be explained with incompetence. It's hard to really sift through which is which with these characters here.
jeez.
the reason,
just
I'll help you
told
out
you I
here. The
understand it.
reason, I've already told you the answer though, but the reason is that relativity claims that time expands and that matter contracts relative to
No,
its motion. So any
It
attempt
literally, once again, it says, I'm sorry, comparison with the discussion in section 12 shows that from the standpoint also of the theory of relativity, this solution of the difficulty was the right one. So yes, actually.
to detect the motion of the Earth.
There's no way someone can watch this and has any excuse not to know. That's why I'm being so reiterative and burying it. It's for all the flat earthers to make sure they know. Don't get, bogged down with this wizardry. It's for all the people on the fence to know. Obviously, I don't care about them admitting that they're wrong. They're going to lie. And this is a perfect example for everyone on the fence that if you're listening to people like this for your evidence, wonder why they have to lie so much. And whenever you're defending the truth, you don't have to lie.
using any measuring apparatus comprised of matter within space, and so using any distance or any attempt to use anything involving time
no, it's just specifically he was talking about Michelson Morley.
will show you a result that looks like the Earth is stationary because time slows down when in motion and the matter contracts when in motion. That is how
All attempts of this nature.
relativity reconcile the negative results.
No, again, you're
that's
mixing
not
up
at
things and talking about relativistic speed.
All right, I'm gonna get you Duck. I'm gonna get the quote that I pulled
Yeah.
up
So I
earlier.
mean, he was basically mixing up Lorentz's version of the ether with what Einstein discovered as relativity.
Comparison with the discussion in section 12 shows that from the standpoint also of the theory of relativity, this solution of the difficulty was the right one. Published in 1920, Relativity, Special and General Theory by Albert Einstein for the 12th time.
getting rid of the ether, because all these relativistic effects can come into play by relative motion from one reference frame to another. So that's how you can, in your frame, nothing is contracting or time is just as it is. But when something's moving fast relative to you, or you're moving fast relative, that's when you get length contraction. But it doesn't happen in your frame.
Does light move fast relative to us, Brian? Did I say that everything in the reference frame contracts so you can't measure the shortening? there is length contraction, period. As in, if you stepped out to God perspective in reality and looked, you'd be like, oh, wow, stuff is shortening everywhere that it's in motion because I'm sitting here at rest and I'm watching everything in motion. Okay. If you're where you're in motion, you wouldn't be able to measure shortening. You wouldn't have length contraction for you as the observer or you wouldn't have length contraction for you as the observer because you're in motion and everything is contracting in that frame of reference. It's actually not that complicated.
Correct amount that
was not observed. Now,
what do we do? And they didn't. So he's for reference. So because even though the ether
of anything, I
That's
studied
wrong.
that earlier and paid attention to it.
you're right.
I'm
Dude, I watched
surprised.
you read the equation off the restroom.
being the electron
of Lorentz's version of the ether. So all these versions of the ether being stationary or ether drag or Lorentz ether, the three main ether models, all these different experiments debunked the ether in different ways. And only relativity came out unscathed from all these experiments. It was the only one.
It's because it says that you could never prove length contraction or measure it, so it's unfalsifiable. That's why it's the only one that came unscathed, and no one will ever replace relativity because no one can come up with something as brilliantly deceptive with wizardry as that, which is time expands, but you can't measure it, so it slows down, but you can never tell. And matter contracts and shortens, but you can't measure it and you can never tell. So therefore, all your attempts to detect the orbit will always be a futile pursuit because it's a stubbornly persistent illusion to trick you that the Earth is stationary and geocentric. You can never tell. Of course, it came out unscathed. It's an unfalsifiable claim. You know, it's like, I don't know what's more annoying, Bryant or this person, right? Like, what's more annoying? What do you guys think? I'm going to ask that in the chat. What's more annoying, Bryant consistently getting this wrong but acting like he's teaching me, or this?
I'm watching you, Witsit. Always watching.
I think that's super funny. Moving on.
That was consistent with every experiment. All the other ether models were debunked from one. Sometimes one experiment wouldn't falsify them. They were still valid within one context. But then, like Michelson-Gale, with Michelson-Morley, you could say, well, it's stationary. But then Michelson-Morley, but then Michelson-Gale would show that it can't be stationary, that it's rotating. So, but within relativity, it could explain all of that. So it's something that Witsit doesn't understand, that what he's explaining is a model of ether that was falsified like almost like 100 years ago, and maybe not 100, but
Oh
a
my
long
God.
time ago. And so he thinks
Relativity says it contracts, Bryant. Write it down with your crayons.
somehow that Einstein was saying his model, things should be contracting and time should be dilating, but that doesn't happen within our frame. That's Lorenz's model of ether.
he's mixing. So
It doesn't happen for the observer in your frame because you're also contracting, as is all space around you, but it does physically happen, and you're also physically contracting in the direction of motion for the 50th time.
here it is. H.A. Lorentz was the first to introduce the hypothesis that particles constituting the electron experience a contraction in the direction of motion. In consequence of that motion, the amount of the contraction being proportional to the expression. Oh, look at that. V squared over C squared. This hypothesis, which is not justifiable by any electrodynamical facts, right? So he's saying there's no mechanism by which this could happen, right? So
look at that right there under on his page. It says the theory of relativity leads to the same law of motion. That's hilarious.
there's the thing just proposing it, and then there's also
The theory of relativity leads to the same law of motion without requiring any special hypothesis that whatsoever as to the structure and the behavior of the electron. Wow.
no plausible mechanism for it.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Yeah, it was in trouble from the start. I mean, from the get-go, it was in trouble when he proposed that things would physically contract like that.
Yeah. So this is, let's see, trying to find the specific sentence that they like to quote.
Was it the Michelson one? I think I got the Michelson one here.
This is Einstein's.
Dude, so it's like what it says is the theory of relativity leads to the same law of motion without requiring any special hypothesis whatsoever as to the structure and the behavior of the electron. We arrived at a similar conclusion in section 13 in connection with the experiment of Fazal, the result of which is foretold by the theory of relativity. The result of which is foretold by the theory of relativity without the necessity of drawing on hypotheses as to the physical nature of the liquid. The second class of facts to which we have alluded has reference to the question whether or not the motion of the Earth in space can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments.
Paper.
It all gets worse for them the more you read it in
This
context.
is
Why would you pull
Einstein's
the book
paper
up?
from 1915. This is general relativity paper. This is
Actually, he wrote it in 16. It was published in 20.
it. Witsit doesn't even know that when he talks about this, he's actually quoting the from the 1915 paper. He has said in the past that it's from 1952, I think.
And I've never said that. And I actually corrected him. And this Discord is like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Let's move on. Now watch. He's like making fun of me for it though. He just lies. He just makes lies up. It's crazy.
The from the 1915 paper. He has said in the past that it's from 1952, I think.
Oh.
And this.
Hey, wait up. We got a new member. Lisa. I hope I say your name right. Severe. Lisa, welcome to the Miswits. Miswit level 3. What a legend. Thank you for becoming a Miswit. Round of applause. Hey, round of applause. Thank you, Lisa, for becoming a member. Greatly appreciated. We're going to be rolling out member-only perks here soon. Thank you.
This also is the one that is quoted in 2007 by Hawking, but it was actually just a copy paste of this. What you're looking at
I
here.
mean, is it the sense I can't see your screen. The sense that I have come to believe, quote.
No,
motion.
that was a speech he gave in Kyoto in Japan.
Yep.
Which
oh right,
is
Kyoto
also which I believe is also prior to Michelson Gale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is.
So all right. So here we go. Look at this. This is important. This time t is different when the body is moving perpendicularly to the planes of the mirrors from the resulting when the motion is parallel to these plates. This is, although the estimated difference between these two times is exceedingly small, Michelson and
It's exceedingly small, Bryant. They're reading it for the audience and they don't know. This is so funny.
Morley performed an experiment involving interference in which this difference should have been clearly detectable. This is within the realm of ether. But
you see how he had to say that? This is within the realm of ether. We'll keep reading there, McLooney Tunes. The Globers are always like, you cherry pick and take stuff out of context. And then he literally is the one that does that. The Globers are the ones that lie, twist, take things out of context, intentionally omit once they see something that they're wrong about. That's called projection.
The experiment gave a negative result, a fact very perplexing. Lorentz rescued the theory from this difficulty by assuming that the motion of the body relative to the ether produces a contraction of the body in the direction of motion. The amount of contraction being just sufficient to compensate.
Just sufficient, Bryant. Let me take a screenshot because this is hilarious. Now look at the bottom here. We'll let him keep reading. We'll see where he stops. I bet he conveniently stops right where he doesn't need to, because he's actually a liar.
Compensate for the difference in time mentioned above, right?
Comparison with the discussion in section 12 shows that also from the standpoint of the theory of relativity, this solution of the difficulty was the right one. You think it's a coincidence he stopped reading it right there?
So now if we go up a little bit, we find the quote. I gotta find
it. Make sure you go up away from where it says relativity also claims that's the right solution to the difficulty.
Let's see here. It's to the question, I think is the
dude, how hilarious is that?
To the question.
I'm pretty sure I know who's going to win this poll. Let's see. So, oh, I put yes or no. I didn't even ask the right question. I'm sorry. Let me, I'm sorry. I'm guessing you guys would have just said FTFE though, let's be honest. Like, honestly, FTFE is way worse.
Come on.
Okay, moving on. We already read it. You guys
Nope.
saw how
Oh,
funny that was. He stopped reading at the very sentence that refutes everything they've been saying for the last hour, and it says, also, the right one, according to the theory of relativity. It's hilarious.
I think he absolutely
Oh,
did.
he's
But
good. Oh, he does love his quotes.
Witsit's thing here.
Oh, he does love his quotes.
You mean I love going to the actual source while you guys misrepresent and bastardize your own model? I have to correct it in order for me to even get to the beginning stage so that I can debate and refute you?
He absolutely
Oh,
did.
he's good.
But he never reads the stuff around it.
The cheery.
I'm the one that reads it around it, and then you intentionally omit it because you're a liar. And everything that I put into my memes, I've read around it, and it only supports my position and how I explain it. So it's not cherry picked, it's not out of context, it's not quote mining, and it doesn't contradict what I bring it up to say ever, never, not one single time. You guys can never point out where I've ever done that.
I mean, he didn't know that quote was actually from Einstein's paper on general relativity, which is what we're looking at right now.
I've literally said it many times. It's his recap explaining both special and general theory. It's not his original paper on relativity. It's him recapping and explaining the two. And it was published in 20, and he started writing maybe 15, then wrote it, finished it in 16, then published it in 20.
Oh,
He didn't know that.
I literally knew it. Then he admitted. So think about how many times he's using it to bash me. While he's reading it, he's clearly never read it. You see, he doesn't know anything about it. He's like skipping over the parts that refute him and show that I'm right. And then he's saying he just didn't even know where it's from. He just made it up. He just quote mined it. He just cherry picked it. And I literally do know where it's from. And then I called him out in the debate. And then he's like, let's move on.
All right.
I know this is
Well,
like
I don't
a
know if
lot.
gonna
I'm
read
sorry.
it.
We'll wrap it
It's
up.
in here. So, all these things about relative. No. Just about Michelson-Morley. And this
That's wrong for the 50th time we showed that.
isn't actually, this is just his justification for how he came to it. This isn't the theory of general relativity. This is just his prelude to it.
It's not the prelude. I never even said, dude, that that was a theory of relativity either, right? Right. So that's what I thought it meant. Prelude means like you're introducing something. This came after relativity was proposed. This is his summary of it, explaining everything about it and why he came to the conclusion of it. So if you want to call that a prelude in the sense that he's explaining what made him come to it, blah, blah, blah. Moving on.
When there is no relativistic speed, Earth, whose words that you are saying in the context that your book, you're
Says that his interlocutor doesn't understand. Witsit doesn't understand.
And you see how ironic I've demonstrated irrefutably they haven't understood the whole time.
Truth is, no, you didn't. You said you can use other things when I asked you how does it explain it? How does it reconcile it? Einstein explains very specifically, right, that every attempt terrestrially, now, so not just Michelson-Morley, you claimed only Michelson-Morley and things like that. No, anything on the Earth.
No.
Okay, and he explains that.
No, he wrote it in 1915. He could not have been referencing things in the future.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
As amazing as Einstein is, Curtis.
Time dilation and Lorentz contraction, and it said that the measuring
to the ether. So this is Witsit saying that it literally contracts in our frame.
No,
and
that's not our claim.
No,
Witsit.
what I said is that it literally, the whole frame literally contracts and physically contracts. And I just showed Einstein. I read it off 2 times in this thing where he says, he corrects the guy who says it's just apparent subjective. It does physically contract. All right, I covered an hour and 53 minutes of it. It's almost 3.5 hours in. People ask me to go in depth and explain it. Please, we'll sit here no matter how long it takes. Please do it. Please do it. So I did it. What happens is it becomes very reiterative because they don't understand it. Now we'll see. Like I called FTFE out at the time. I'll say one thing I can tell right now. I guarantee that once you find out you're wrong and that the 1/5000th the width of a human hair is the exact sufficient amount needed to compensate for the change in time, you won't come out to your audience and admit you were wrong. Of course, he's not. He was on Discord the other day saying, no, I wasn't wrong. I'm going to do a video. Just wait till the end of January or February. I'm going to put out a video destroying you about relativity. You're so wrong. You don't understand it. I said, what am I wrong about? He said, I don't know. I don't understand it. I just know you're wrong. I've talked to experts. He said, Professor Phil's one of the experts that I've talked to. Then he jumped in. I started talking to him about it, destroyed him within like 15 seconds, and he dropped out of the call, said he had to go. And then I'm like, well, do you understand it? Do you know anything? Dude, that's an astrophysics professor. I'm talking to these astrophysicists, these physicists, these BA, MA, PhDs, you name it, and they can't debate this because they don't know what it is, right? It's not me tooting my own horn. It's like, you can do that too. You can walk into a college and a university, and that's what I want to do. I want to equip my audience with the ability to understand this in a more simple way. I'm trying not to overcomplicate it. I'm going to really try to break it down where everyone understands it next week, where you can walk up to anybody. You can be confident. You don't need to be, whenever people doing a credentials fallacy on you and they're like, what, you don't have the credentials to talk about this. So, like, that's a credentials fallacy, saying that my argument must be wrong and can be dismissed because I don't have credentials. That's fallacious. How about you dispute the merit of the argument? Whenever they say, oh, what about all the scientists are saying they're all wrong? They're like, dude, I can debate them, bring them here. He's like, no, I'm actually saying that the ones that actually know what they're talking about would agree. And when you can do this, you can cut off this whole notion that you're stupid, because the truth is 90% of the world, 99% of the world doesn't understand the basic postulates or any of the relativity or what Michelson-Morley even is, doesn't even know what it is, how it applies to this conversation. It's very like helpful tool if you can wrap your mind around it and convey it simply. And it is simple, right? It's like the light was trying to catch up to the earth, so it would have been behind it, but it showed that it wasn't behind it. So it showed the earth wasn't moving, even though it was way sensitive enough to detect it. It changed all of physics. The physicists were confused. Were like, what happened? And then Einstein came in with relativity and saved the day by taking something from this guy named Lorentz, which said the apparatus contracted just the right amount in the direction of motion to where you wouldn't be able to tell that the light was separated because it was traveling through space. And so that everything contracts, and you can never measure it because everything in there contracts. Everything in your frame of reference on the earth contracts in direction of motion, and time slows down. And you can like explain this. You can just say, look, if I have this piece of paper, if it's moving this way, it's shortening in the direction of motion. It shortens, right? So this is getting shorter, but everything in this frame of reference is also getting shorter. So you wouldn't be able to tell. And you have to go relativistic speed. So this thing has to go crazy fast, like close to the speed of light to see it. It's a very convenient, unfalsifiable, ad hoc explanation to save the globe Earth from becoming stationary Earth. All right, cool. All right, now I want to shout out some of the people. It's already been so long. I didn't want to do more than 3 hours, like 3.5 hours is super long. I went early, and now it's still going to be like a late time I get done. It's crazy. So once again, shout out to all the people here that came and supported us at the baby shower. Much love to everybody. That was awesome. A lot of base FE families and children running around, organic and learning the truth. And it's just a beautiful high vibration. We really loved it. Thank you to all of you guys. Here are some of the cards that we got. It was very nice. Some of the baby cards. Thank you. I think it's Joanna. Thank you so much. And with love, Bobby, Cami, and Jaren. Thank you guys. I love you guys. I did text you guys. I love you so much. Thank you. Enjoy the wonder of each precious moment. Congratulations. Love, Crystal. Thank you so much for the sentiment and the card. I appreciate it. A little gift for that little someone who will soon be making a big splash in your world. Congratulations, the Bolton. Thank you so much. Much love. I hope you guys are cool with me reading those cards off. But I appreciated everyone else that was there and came and showed us love. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. That was very uplifting and high vibration for us. We enjoyed it a lot. Okay, I got something else in my P.O. box. It says, in a world, Would-Be Bear here. Haven't missed an episode since meeting you and your wife at Flattoberfest. We need to set up a bear meetup here in South Carolina. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Much love. Thank you for writing me the letter. I think they're super awesome and personal, and I really like them. Thank you so much for the donation that you sent in there, and thank you for the kind words and the support, and I am definitely down to set something up in South Carolina. Advice from a polar bear: live large, be thick-skinned, sniff out opportunities, learn some good icebreakers, be fearless, keep it cool. Austin and Kai, I don't chat much on live streams. I hope you guys are cool with me reading this. But I do comment on the replay at times. Love your shows, Austin. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Fourth commandment. Blessings for you both. And they hated me, said Jesus, so they will hate you. Keep on trucking. Love, Ronnie. Much love. Thank you so much for the kind words and the support. We got some pretty cool, like scented little gifts here. Very cool. We got a scented ornament. We don't do the Christmas tree thing, but it's still very cool. We can hang it somewhere. It smells really good. So cool. Thank you guys. I will be going to the P.O. box and checking it. If anyone, I know that I saw some people got some stuff off the baby registry. So I'll open up whatever comes to the P.O. box off the baby registry, and I'll thank you guys for it. You might be able to attach like a letter or something to it. I don't know, but I'll open it up and thank you guys. I'll open them up on camera, and that will be it's greatly appreciated. The baby registry is in the description. I do think, I hope so. I don't really know, but thank you guys so much for all the help regarding that. It's really amazing. You guys are dope. Okay, cool. So I think we covered it all. Okay, that's not a bad idea. Let me show you something. Dr. Law, who is a legend, always hooks everything. So Karen B, through that, shout out to Karen B. Thank you so much for the baby shower. That was very nice of you. And let me show you guys. This picture from the baby shower. It's very cool. Drop it on Telegram real fast. Telegram is like a lifesaver. Send everything on Telegram now. And I'll check the donations. I'll get caught up on like anything sent in Cash App or PayPal soon. It's like 3.5 hours, but there's no way. I don't want to go through them all and see what's on there right now from the last couple weeks. I just have to do it another one. Let me add this to an overlay. So Dr. Law carved up some like fruit art, and it's awesome. Look at that. Baby carriage. Oh yeah, this has like a really cool flower on top of it. It's like incredibly beautiful, cute little baby carriage. It was super cool. So yeah, thank you guys for the baby shower. That was very cool to know that we have Flat Earth Familia that has our back. Is very encouraging. Shout out to all the Rockfin viewers and the tips over on Rockfin. Thank you guys so much. Shout out to everyone that super chatted. I appreciate it. I will read off super chats via Cash App or PayPal, and I will read everything off the PO box. Thank you guys so much. So I covered all of Bryant and MC Tunes misconceptions, often Glober misconceptions. That's why I covered them. I normally don't want to give people like that too much energy, and moving forward, we're probably not going to. I may cover like say me and Jaren's debate or something. I'll cover some debates and do debate reviews, but moving forward, schooling the Globers is going to be specific topics that we go through and we really break down once a week. Wednesdays, I think Wednesdays at 7 p.m. is a good time Eastern. We had an awesome Patreon only stream Sunday that was super cool. I like hanging out with you guys. Everyone jumps on. I think we're going to make it where even more people can jump in there as like a secret hangout, even if you don't want to jump on camera, because there's a StreamYard update where a lot of people can jump in there. So that'll be cool. Patreon.com/witsitgetsit. We post the link in the StreamYard link on there. That's pretty cool. We're going to start doing member only stuff soon. So that'll be cool. All right. And then I covered the whole Professor Dave Bryant saga at the beginning of the stream. So you guys can just check that out if you want to know what really happened. I don't lie, obviously. And they're just running around spreading lies, but yeah, it is what it is. I trusted the anti-flat earther Bryant Myers for his word because he swore up and down that he was going to keep his word, and that no matter what happened, he would keep his word. Once the date was agreed upon, and he wanted me to say it publicly, so I did. And I'm like, I'm trusting you, bro, because I don't want to say that and you pull out and then everyone run around saying I'm scared and demanding money, but I'm scared and all this nonsense and try to bash me. Please just be honest and keep your word. He said, I promise you got my word. I wouldn't do that. I'm like, okay. So then I go say it publicly. And then, of course, here we are where I agreed to it December 16th, but now I'm backing out because I'm scared and all this stuff. And then I spent the money that I had put aside on the debt because he swore up and down so much. He really convinced me. I guess he tricked me. He used my good intention against me. What can you do? And so now he's kind of put me in a tough situation. But moral of the study is of the story is don't trust anti-flat earthers. T Baggins, hey, thank you for becoming a misfit. Welcome to the club. Thank you for becoming a member. Much love. I'm just gonna. I said, brother, no, but thank you so much for becoming a member, and you will get some member only perks here soon. Maybe member only streams, but member only chats, stuff like that. So that's cool. Okay, still working on the app. Getting the business finalized finally, which we had to pay for, and then gonna get the app up and running, get the website up and running here soon. So we got that coming. I got like a whole list of like really big channels I want to try to get on in 2023 and just start really spreading the word. A bunch of awesome guests that are gonna start coming that I'm lining up, and cool other podcasts I'm gonna be on, and interviews, documentaries I'm gonna be in, movies I'm gonna be in. It should be a lot of stuff coming. It should be cool. Cool. That's about it. So thank you guys for kicking it. If you want to support the stream, links in the description. The Cash App and PayPal and all that. Patreon member, you get it. You can just go to the links in the description. And of course, my PO box is PO Box 171433, Spartanburg, South Carolina 29301. Thank you guys for kicking it. Seek and speak truth unequivocally. The weak find contentment, the consensus of ignorance. So who cares what other people think? They're always going to attack you when you speak the truth. And, strong people don't care what weak people think. It requires strong people to stand up in the face of societal ostracism. And when they attack you, so that truth will always prevail, and it always will prevail. The truth will always be brought to light. So just stand tall, keep on defending it no matter what. What's true is not always popular. What's popular is not always true. You just have to speak the truth regardless. When they revile you for his name's sake, rejoice, for they did it to all the prophets before you. I'll catch up with you guys. Manana, much love.
Geopolitically, we in a field that's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they simple pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up, had to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in a field that's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Took the way you saw the world, then distorted it. Now you think you wanna rock and twirl, somewhere orbiting. Theories disproportionate, the truth distorted quick with a forceful grip. They force a misinfo that we absorbing quick. Took the people's signature that mean extorted it. They forging it. If news ain't good informant to informing them, there's a surplus, but they tell us there are shortages. Credit economy mortgages, dollar that's supported with empty fortresses. But what's important is this: we porting ships, important gifts. Of course it is, what extortion is in accordance with an assortment list of foreign tricks. We ignoring which informant this, informant this. It looked like we were snoring tricked. Pedophilia and the government endorsing it. Yeah, eugenics is exactly what abortion is. You just vilify those insubordinate. Way to matrix engineer, that's unfortunate. Geopolitically, we in a field that's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they simple pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up just to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in a field that's for Israel. Wonder, is it real?